Hey, Pete. Welcome to the Undraped Artist Podcast.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, it's good to have you. Hey, thanks for fitting me in. That was really cool of you to reach out and do that.
Oh, sorry, I was playing hard. I was playing hard to get a bit.
Yeah, you kind of were.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I get how busy you are, man. And look at all those paintings behind you. I can see you're obviously doing a lot of painting right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of. I suppose I always do, really. And they're all quite small, Jeff.
Jeez.
Yeah, yeah. Always paint, so always knocking them out. So they're ones behind me are I'm painting for a sort of a show of Glasgow paintings. So I'm just sort of discovering the city. So kind of just finding little bits I like and painting them on board. It's all quite small panels.
Yeah. Did you always work small, or you kind of back and forth?
I prefer working small, actually. I'll say at the moment, although I haven't said that in New York, I'm working bigger, but yeah, I don't know why. I just quite like, I quite like working on MDF, quite like working on, panel, smooth panel. And I'm getting quite fiddly. I think we always we get fiddly and then we loosen up and then we get fiddly in a way, don't we?
Sometimes, right,
yeah. And I'm obviously going for a bit of a tight phase at the moment, yeah.
And okay, I want to get into your whole history and everything, but I'm just really curious. So you always paint plein air, right? Everything you do is outside.
Yeah, everything is from in front of the subject. So if I do paint indoors, if I paint in here in this studio, it's of the studio.
Right. From life. Yeah, so you're always working from life.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing. I always say there's nothing between my ears, Jeff. Really, there's no imagination. There's no. So all my inspiration needs to come from seeing it in front of me, sort of thing. So, so that's just how I operate.
Man, well, I don't know. I mean, obviously we've just met, but I feel like it takes a lot of creativity to create such beautiful paintings of often relatively mundane scenes. Because you're painting things that a lot of people would just walk by and not think that they're particularly beautiful, and then you make something spectacular out of it.
Well, it's nice to think I do make something of it. And my thing is, I just think the everyday is beautiful, and that's I don't want to sound too arsey but that's kind of what I want to celebrate. Really, there's a wonderful and I don't know who said it, probably Sargent or someone, but the magic and poetry of everyday life, which sort of says it all, really. That and we all say it, don't we? We live our lives when we're waiting for something to happen, when we're walking from one place to another, sort of thing. And for me, that's where we spend most of our lives is
mm-hmm.
is walking down streets and getting places and or sitting in cafes and I'm just really interested in that, and I think it's when you go to different places in the world, it's where you see how you get to the culture of that place. The high street or the kind of the everyday.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I said it yet, but I got to tell you, I mean, the reason I want you on the podcast is because I think you're absolutely extraordinary. I mean, your work is unbelievable.
Well, you have to say that, Jeff.
No, I don't, man. I get to choose my guests. So
okay. Well, I'm very honoured to be chosen. I have to say, there's some great guys on here. So
there's a lot of great painters out there now. But one thing that you're doing that not a lot of people are doing is something that I'm really intimidated by. So if you've heard the podcast, you might have kind of deduced that I'm really interested in becoming a better landscape painter. So I've had a bunch of landscape painters on.
Right.
But I live right here in Salt Lake City, and there's a lot. Salt Lake City is actually a really beautiful, it's a relatively mid-size, it's a small city, kind of mid-size, smallish city. but it's really clean and beautiful and got some nice architecture and stuff. I'm intimidated as heck to get out there and paint the city. I mean, the landscape is hard enough. And then trying to consider going out into the city with all this architecture and then chasing the light with such complex architecture is unbelievably intimidating. And that's all you do. I mean, I'm
Uh,
you do some landscape, but you're always
yeah.
in the city.
Well, we all do our own thing, don't we? And it's similarly, struggle with landscape. I struggle with green wobbly things. I like straight lines.
Really?
Like that. Well, the wonderful thing about cities and streets is that structure, is that kind of that's there.
Right.
There are mineral wobbly lines, but there are straight lines, and we do what we do, sort of thing. And so, and actually, you're right. The fleeting light is the killer, or the thing that maybe makes it or kills it, perhaps. And I do, especially at the moment, I'm more interested probably in architectural detail, in things, in how in buildings and stuff. And so if that's what you're into, then ideally you want even light grey days, so you can really sort of nail it, get your tones right and stuff like that. Um, so and then when we do get bright lights, it does quite scare me, actually. I mean, it's scary. You have to crack on and do work with what you're given. But um yeah, I do. I worry about my color a bit when it gets to sort of bright sunlight, which is why a lot of the time people like me tend very often will go for contre-jour, looking into the light and sort of trying to get a bigger window of opportunity. And
Wait, could you explain that again? I'm not sure I understand that
well,
term.
so if the light's behind me, we're allowed to get nerdy on this, right?
Heck yeah, I
So,
want to get nerdy on
yeah.
this.
So if the light's behind me. Um, and I've managed to get in the shade. I've realised after years of it, don't painting the sun peak took me a while. Then I'd say maybe 2 hours maximum before the lights change that much that you can't, you're undoing. If you're just copying what's in front of you, you're undoing what you've done, the reason you first got there. If you're looking into the lights, I reckon the sun can move around a greater angle. I reckon you've just got more time
Hmm.
because the sun is, I don't know, you've got a greater angle for the sun to move around where it doesn't, the light doesn't change that much, because you're looking towards it, most things in silhouette sort of thing. So I just think you've got a little bit more time really if you're doing that. Um,
Mm.
that's all really. Yeah, just a bigger window of opportunity really.
So it seems you're kind of living in a good place in Britain because it's overcast quite often there, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's
S-
raining now.
Is it really? Yeah. So I
Yeah,
mean, so if you want overcast, you're in the right place.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah. But I mean, weather's changeable everywhere, isn't it? I mean, it's pretty bloody grey here. You're right. It's
Yeah,
pretty
I've
miserable.
never
And
been
I do
there.
like it. I do like painting in the rain, so I am in. I'm
Yeah.
in quite a good place. So in fact, I was talking to mate in New York. I think Pete St. John. Anyway, he said when he first came to the UK, he went to Wembley Stadium, the old Wembley Stadium, which is a sort of our mecca for soccer here. And you can look through all the four corners kind of into the stadium. And he said he's got a photograph of every four corner, and he said that every photograph's completely different weather, all taken within
Really?
an which kind of says a lot. It's changeable. But,
Yeah, I suppose it could be really tough on one of those days where it's sunny or where it's like patchy clouds and the sun comes out and then it's out and then it's gone and then it's out and then it's gone and then it's out.
yeah, it's messy, messy. Monkey's wedding, we call it. When it's been raining in particular, so you've got wet tarmac and then the sun on it, and it's kind of, yeah, I call it messy, and it's quite hard to deal with. But
Hmm.
but that's supposed to be the fun. So there you go.
So is that the easel you use behind you? The French
That's
easel?
just it's a Maybach box easel. Yeah, I thought they were Italian, but apparently not made there anymore. Well, I heard ages ago, and I can't put any more flesh on this whatsoever. Perhaps your viewers will be able to, or your subscribers will be able to put. I heard that it was invented or designed by a prisoner of war. That's all I know.
Really?
When I like the idea of that, and they're kind of wooden, and they are. Um, pretty old-fashioned things, really. I mean, they
Oh yeah,
obviously,
that's old school.
you know,
That's like I
yeah.
thought they were French. I thought that was called a French easel.
There was yeah, they're called Frenchies. Well, I think there's a Julian, which is the French one. This is Maber. I mean, we're just talking
Oh.
brands, but
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
but yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, it's a. But you can get the half ones. I mean, they're ridiculously heavy. I've not in 30 years of painting. I've not really kind of sorted myself out. You know, I mean, most people will use a, a camera tripod and a thing that screws on top, and
Yeah, the Pashad box.
yeah, exactly. But I
That
walk around with that and a huge toolbox full of,
what? I
200
don't
mil paint.
understand.
And a
But you're
complete
like
idiot.
you're like among the best of the best. And you have I don't know, 100-year-old easel design or 200-year-old easel design.
You're right. Isn't it funny? We just stick with what we know. I mean, it's ridiculous. And actually,
Yeah.
this is really nerdy, but as it folds and comes back up, the removable joints in there, which are fastened with self-tapping screws. So from the off, it's kind of undoing and sort of falling apart. So you just bring a screwdriver with you and constantly sort of fixing it. And I used to go through, I'm a bit better now, but I used to go through a couple a year. Just, yeah, but now I sort of fix them and
Man, I
polish
tell you what, you send me a small study and I'll send you a Pashad box. That's
them. Yeah.
Jeez Louise, man. Well,
It's
hey,
just, the
whatever
other thing
works
is, you've
for
got
you.
like, the other thing is I carry pets. It's very heavy, especially if canvas is on.
Yeah.
And I need to get a trolley and a cart, really. So eventually, when my arms start falling out of sockets, I'll twig it. But that's kind of been my career, is learning everything the hard way and realizing, God, it took me years to realize why you shouldn't be painting on a whiteboard, but it's a good way to learn, because once you learn it the hard way, that's, it goes in and you realize
It
why
sticks. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it sticks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing I noticed about you is that you have a little bit of something on your shirt. Like
Yes. Is it for show? So I forget now. I clean my brushes when I got a brush. It's a bit borrow, but I I clean my brushes there,
yeah,
and
apparently. That's
and it
wild.
becomes it's so funny. It's just become a habit I don't even notice. And every now and then, if I think, oh God, that person's missing a leg on a painting or something, and I'm normal clothes, not that I've got very many clean clothes, I will just say, "Okay, careful," but let's just forget. And then, oh hell, there's another painting shirt. So yeah, very few of my clothes, Jeff, have not got paint on.
Oh man, that's how I am, but with my pants. I clean my hands and my brushes on my pants.
Yeah.
And what's bad, I've started carrying a bandana around with me to try and get in the habit of cleaning my hands on something else, because I found that I'll put on a pair of slacks and be going to church and I'll get something on my hands and just clean it on my pants out of habit. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I'm like dressed all nice now, and I just ruined my
It's
pants.
not great.
I'll like
Yeah,
get like
greasy
we'll be eating a
fingers.
cupcake or something. I'll get it on my hands. I'm like wipe it on my slacks. It's like what?
Yeah, God, it's terrible.
I
Yeah,
know it's a
right.
bad habit.
It's not good. No, no, you're right. We need to grow up a bit. It's funny though, but you're right. It's that automatic thing, isn't it?
It
Get it
is,
off.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're
I
right.
love it.
You know
So
what
do
I
you
mean?
have a few of those shirts? Then do you just kind of
I've
alternate
got
your
tons.
rag
Yeah,
shirts?
yeah, and I have so in the back of the van, which is why I have that sort of heavy easel, because I can get the van to most places and get. I have, like I'm sure most people have, and their painters will have just a huge crate. It's an IKEA bag because they're enormous, aren't they? Full
Hmm.
of single item of clothing you could ever want, all a bit musty and dusty for over the years. But yeah, a lot, thermal underwear and all that sort of stuff, just for every possible occasion.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. I love just how much you look like a painter. Like it's just like you're just dripping painter. It's so great.
I'd like to pretend I've just come from the easel, but that's nonsense. I've been doing other things today, but I just kind of automatically put this on, and I
Right.
thought I could wear something nice for you, and then I thought, well, no, it's
No,
painting
that's who
product.
you
Yeah,
are. I'm
what the
glad you
hell?
wore that. That's great.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
All right, so let's back way up. I want to get an introduction into as to how you got into this whole thing. So tell me about all the way back to childhood. Were you always into painting?
No. So I know a lot of your guests say they came out of the womb holding a paintbrush.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't. So, but what I did do is I grew up in the middle of nowhere, in a wood in the middle of nowhere. I mean, a house, but it was kind of like a falling down house in the middle of nowhere. And I did have friends as a kid, but I spent a lot of time on my own. I had four brothers and sisters, but I learned how to play, and it's quite hard to say, to play on my own. I mustn't say with myself, but so in the summer I was in the woods making camps, and in the winter I had a model railway. So which I was obsessed with. So, and I think that's really important. And I think as an artist, that's quite important to be happy in your own space, in your own head, and be happy to just go, follow your own path and entertain yourself. I think that's kind of what a lot of art's about. Is about kind of disappearing out your own bum, as it were. So, and so I did that. I mean, I was at primary school, elementary school, you call it. I was kind of into art a bit. I remember my teacher teaching me how to paint a chrysanthemum, and she gave me I don't know, 50 pence a piece for it or something. So there was a bit of something, but not a great deal. Got to secondary school, and I was kind of into it, but it was always a bit of a joke. And one of my teachers said to my mother, "That boy will go to art college." We thought it was hilarious. But it wasn't until about 15 actually that suddenly it clicked, and it was doing. It's one of those things where I always think you need. There's two things that you need, which is one of the first, the most important thing is passion, and the second thing is a little bit of confidence, or a bit of
Hmm.
confidence that I think I can do this. So at the age of about 15, I think I was just copying something out of some horrendously cheesy book, an illustration or something. And it kind of went all right. And I thought, God, I really love this. And I wanted to be, sort of landscapes, I suppose it was at the time, me being obsessed with being in the middle of a wood. I kind of like, painting trees and stuff like that, which I did extraordinarily badly, but loved doing it, and just pursued it. And it was the love of doing it which really got me going. And I wasn't good, Jeff. It went away. When I was 18, what the equivalent of, I don't know what it would be in yours, in America, but we do A levels at the age of 18, before you go off to, uni and or college. And so those 2 years doing that, there was seven of us in our art class, and I was just by far the worst.
Are you
I was
serious? I find that's so
absolutely serious.
surprising.
Yeah. My drawing was awful. My proportions were horrendous. We didn't get great instruction, is my defence, but and I do when I talk to school kids, I say this, say that it's all. I mean, and I whenever I give a talk, Jeff, and I do it rarely, okay, I say I'm going to say something now to this room full of people, 30 people, and at the end, you're all going to say, "I know what you mean, but I completely disagree." And what I always say is that, like, to be a basketball player, you need to be 12 foot tall or something. That's useful, but the rest is all passion and practice, in my view, because that's what it is for me. And I don't think you're particularly born with it. I think you learn it. And when I look at your podcast and people say they came out of the womb with a brush in their hand, well, yeah, that's kind of says it all, doesn't it? They were painting and drawing from a really early age. I mean, there's books written on this sort of thing, aren't there? The 10,000 hours and stuff like that. I'm a firm believer in that because I was generally awful. Hopefully, I'm a
Wow,
bit better now.
you're really throwing my whole philosophy for a loop here. Because I had a podcast a while back with one artist. Now I'm forgetting which artist I had this conversation with, but we were talking about talent. And I've been teaching for many years, and I've noticed that some students just have a lot of natural talent,
Right.
and obviously some don't. And the ones with natural talent, if they have work ethic, they always rise to the top. That's my experience. But the ones with work ethic can beat someone with natural talent if that one with natural talent is lazy. But if you put two that have the same work ethic and one has natural talent, the one with the natural talent and that work ethic will win over. That's been my experience in watching students. But now you're telling me this, and I'm looking at your work, and there's no one better than you. And so, if this is true that you have no natural talent, at least that's how you describe it, then I'm kind of flabbergasted because I never would have believed that someone with no talent could get to your level. I mean, it's mastery.
Yeah, that's really kind of you. I think probably I would have to bow to your greater experience, Jeff, because I don't teach at all, and I don't come across a load of people at all different levels. So so I'm probably just talking through the top of my head. Really, it's just my
But
experience.
is it possible you did have some talent, you just weren't aware of it? I mean,
Yeah, maybe it something got unearthed, along the way. But it was for such a long time that I struggled with proportion and stuff like that. I mean, I probably wasn't. I mean, the only time I can remember being actually properly taught stuff, useful stuff, was in the life room. Taught some idea of measured drawing and proportion and stuff like that. Um, and I think when I really started applying that, then I started kind of getting, well, it made me look more objectively, really, at how I was drawing and why making these, elongated things that I didn't realize were elongated. So I look back at them. So, um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm just talking about my own experience here.
that's
Yeah, but
incredible.
just slightly, and I mean, from what you said, you completely agree with this. It does annoy me when, and everyone watching this podcast will agree with this. It's annoying when people say, "Gosh, you're so lucky," and you must be so patient, as if it's a completely passive thing that we stand there for 3 hours and because we're so patient, something happens.
Yeah.
And also, we're so lucky because we just sort of came out of our bedroom and went, "Blimey, look at that! I can paint. That's amazing." Of course, it's like any singer, anyone who has any success in anything. Of course, it's all underpinned by hours and hours and hours of kind of getting it wrong and trying to get it right and stuff like that sort of thing. So.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I mean,
I
even
suppose
someone.
when I say that, I'm just reacting to that more than anything. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and I think everyone can agree with that, is even the most talented person has to put in the time. It because talent is just aptitude. It's just the ability to learn. It's not you're not born knowing how to paint. You still have to learn it, right?
Well, I think that's it in a nutshell. That's what I'm going to rob from you now. That's what I'll say. No, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, aptitude. Yeah, that's really, really, really good. Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
interesting that proportion, you've mentioned it like 3 times. Proportion is the thing that you struggled with. And
Mm.
yet you landed on cityscape, which is absolutely proportion based. I mean, if you screw up your proportions, you're toast.
Yeah, totally right. Totally right.
So why do you suppose someone as you describe yourself, who struggled with proportion, didn't go into painting? How did you put it earlier? Wobbly things,
Oh,
wobbly trees.
sorry, hang on. That's really rude to landscape painters.
No, no,
Watch.
no. Believe me,
But
no
what I
one's going to
mean
be
is,
offended. They get it.
yeah, yeah,
And you said
yeah.
you
So I
couldn't
mean,
do
it's
it.
probably to me. Yeah. So, good question, Jeff. I think we go for what we we find hard, perhaps. I think with architecture, that's where you can sort your proportions out, because it's. I mean, I don't use maths, but it's all there, and it's pretty obvious when you get it wrong. So it's a great learning place, isn't it? As
Yeah.
much as anything. But I think, I mean, I look back at why do I paint cityscapes, and the thing that probably first got me when, because I sort of did art college and all that, and then gave up for a year, didn't do anything, and then came back to it. And what the reason I came back to it is when I was moving to here, where I live, Bath, which is very beautiful. Georgian city, all made out of the same beautiful limestone, and it's made of crescents and enough tourists push for Bath, but it's a very beautiful place. And when I moved here, it was this place that got me back into drawing with a stick of charcoal, and that's kind of probably why I've become so interested in cities and yeah, and cityscapes really. So there's two things. There's the architecture of a place. Well, there's three things. There's probably thousands, but let's just there's the architecture of the place. There's the landscape of the city, and then there's stuff that goes on, and there's sort of like the culture of the city, I suppose, the people and stuff like that, which sort of tickle me. And
Hmm.
and um, and now it's well, I love cities now. I think why is it? I think there's a bit in all of us that wants to be at the best party, and I like being there. I mean, I've been playing in New York recently, as you know, and you know, is that the center of the universe? Got to be close to it. I just, and I just love the idea of being in those busy spots where where it's all kicking off,
Hmm.
and there are so many people and so much stuff going on. Yeah, so I think that's what attracts me to cities now.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I remember when I was in college, I was living in a basement apartment of a friend of mine, and she was sort of an art connoisseur. And so she was sort of, very supportive. And I would come upstairs and show her the things I was doing at school and whatnot. And I did this portrait. It was one of my first real serious attempts at a portrait. If you don't know my work, that's what I do is
I think
portraits, right? So, but at the time, it was my first serious attempt at a portrait, and it turned out okay, but it was brutally difficult. And I was like, and she said to me, "This is really nice." And I was like, thanks. And she goes, "Are you going to be a portrait painter?" And I was like, "Hell no. No, I'm not going to be a portrait painter."
so.
And she said, "Why not?" And I said, "I just don't like it." But deep down, I knew that the reason why is because it was too hard. But I
Right.
had convinced myself that it just wasn't me. Like, I'm not going to be a portrait painter. It's just not, I'll do something that different. But deep down, I knew it was because it was not fun because it was so difficult. Right. I don't know what happened, why I ended up, like, maybe I tried a few more and started feeling a sense of confidence. I don't remember why I switched that. But the reason I tell you that story is because I'm kind of curious. I'm still just blown away as I'm watching this slideshow go by. And I know how hard it is because you're a relatively loose painter. And when you put, say, a windowsill down, right, on one of these buildings, or this banister here, you're putting just a stroke down. It's got to be, you're not fiddling, you're not coloring in the lines. You got to be really precise because you're just putting down just a stroke to represent a windowsill, a stroke to represent the bumper of a car, another stroke to represent the hull of a ship. Like, you're
Mm.
not just fiddling, so your precision is spot on. And I just wonder how you got to that point where, because you must have messed up a lot of paintings in trying to get that good, you know? Where did you get the
Yeah.
confidence, and how come you didn't have the attitude that I had in college, like, "Oh, this is too hard. I'll try something easier."
Well, let's just start with that. You didn't, did you? And portrait painting
I know,
is
I
the
did
hardest
end up.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, but that is the hardest thing. I would not go near the stick, mate. It's like,
Really? I see, I can't do what
yeah,
you do,
yeah.
so I don't know,
Well,
but
I paint my kids at about 10 yards with their backs turned to us, Jeff. That's about as good as it. And I was a member of something called the Royal Society of Portrait Painters, and it was a very contentious election. And in the end, I resigned because I don't study the head in that. I don't study the head in that in the detail that a portrait painter does, and I don't
right.
think I have the emotional connection, or I get to that emotional connection at all. So it wasn't for me. And I think it's the hardest thing in the world. I think it's the hardest thing to do a portrait, and to do a portrait that's a good painting. I mean, God, how much, how hard do you want to make it? I always say I can put one of these windowsills you're talking about in the wrong place, and the house is never going to come back at me. They don't care. You put an eye in the wrong place and you're in trouble, sort of thing. So,
Well, that's
uh,
true.
yeah. And I think, it's the same. There's when you look at a painting, as you know, the viewer, is doing a lot of the painting. And I think probably that's what I benefit from a great deal, is people expect things to be in the right place. And in a way, they sort of put it in the right place themselves. I think I say I go in between being quite fiddly and being quite loose within my world. It's probably all quite loose, perhaps, but and I think sometimes there's a confidence thing going on there, and I think sometimes I'm best when I just back myself and just react to what I see without thinking about it at all. Just what shape is it? What color is it? And a more of a guttural reaction. I think that's kind of when hopefully the interesting stuff happens. And that's my battle is I go between trying to nail it and what you said earlier about drawing it out and filling it in. And that's my constant battle. At the moment, I'm getting quite fiddly. And so I am doing a lot of drawing and filling in, which I'm not totally anti, but there's a huge bit of us that all wants to do what Sargent does, which is drop an eye in a socket like a poached egg on a plate. You just like the idea that I'm not obsessed with showing off in painting, but he was bloody good at it, wasn't he? And he gives the impression that he just literally farted a brush at the canvas and on it went, which obviously isn't true. But I went off on a bit of a tangent there. But there's that thing I think between um, trying to nail the drawing, get that right, and be as true to what's in front of me, and then getting a feeling as well, because there's a mixture of the two is the best way of being as true. I think possible
Yeah.
feeling of this and also accurate.
Is it just me or the rest of you guys also get weirdly excited when you order new paint? Because I don't know about you, but when I get paint in the mail, it feels like Santa just dropped my Christmas presents off at my doorstep. With Vasari paint, my paint of choice and the podcast sponsor, it's even more exciting. And let me show you why. Because when Vasari shows up, it comes in this incredible box where each tube lays in this little compartment perfectly formed around the tube in this nice soft foam. And it's surrounded by velvet, red velvet. Now you got to ask yourself, if a paint comes so carefully protected and surrounded by red velvet, you got to wonder if this paint is worthy of royalty. It is. Vasari is. So if you haven't tried Vasari, you're seriously missing out. And the thing about Vasari, it's not only the best paint out there, it's also made by an incredible company that's been around for 30 years and knows its customer by name. Do yourself a favor, go to VasariColors.com and order yourself some for your next painting. Yeah. Well, I just have to say, though, it's interesting how one perceives oneself, because I think you are that type of person that makes it look like Sargent did, where you just threw the brush at the canvas and something happened. I mean, it just seems effortless. I have seen some of the stuff on your Instagram where you're kind of showing the process,
Yeah.
and maybe I'm missing some of what you just described, but I didn't see anything that looked like you were literally drawing meticulous underdrawings and then filling in. They just seemed like you were laying out the perspective,
Yeah.
loosely
Yeah.
laying out the perspective. Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's not what I meant. I meant like a meticulous
Right.
drawing, almost like a full on 1 point or 2 point perspective drawing. And then you're literally painting in the lines,
Okay. I mean, I
which,
recently did a 2 point perspective thing, and it was quite tight. But it was quite interesting in a way. It just because but it's simply because there've been some guy watching me, a lovely guy from Chinatown called Simon, and we're talking about perspective the day before, and it suddenly occurred to me, wouldn't it be interesting to be not just looking down Grand Street, but also down Christie or something like that. There were two streets going off to. So actually, you did do that. Which, oh, sorry, you just reminded me of that. But yeah, fiddly for me, Jeff. So
yeah, right.
and getting, but sometimes you do have to put it on a structure. You have to, because otherwise you're getting all sorts of bother. And there's nothing. I mean, I think you get found out, or doing what I do, you get found out with figures a lot, because if that thing, if we just make that generalization that eye level, we're all the same height. So as figures disappear down the landscape and it's on an even, on a bit flat road, then their heads stay in the same place and the legs shrink up. That's how they sort of naturally get smaller. then if you've got your drawing slightly wrong, some of the figures in the foreground can look very kind of El Greco or very kind of elongated, and you can get in all sorts of trouble. So there's an element of trying to get that stuff right, I guess. Just because I get annoyed when I sort of see a figure that's kind of wrong shape a bit. So
Yeah.
it's like my own. Probably most people don't give a damn, but for me, I just get annoyed, and I get annoyed when you think, God, Pete, just get a set square out for heaven's sake. What is, there are buildings that when there's loads of buildings falling over, just silly things that could be with a bit of a bit of time and a bit of sense can be sorted out. But it's just me being a bit aim.
Mhm. All right, so I want to back up a little bit. So you said that you went to school and then you gave it up for a little while
Mm.
and then you went back to it. And what do you mean by you went back to it? You went back to painting or did you actually ever go back to school and finish up your schooling?
No, sorry. I did a lot. I did school, and I did what we do, a foundation course, which is a year's study, really good year's study after your sort of A levels, and you're about 18, 19, which is, do you want to do graphics? Do you want to do photography? Do you want to do fashion? It's a really good year. Um, and then you do your 3-year degree here, so or whatever it's going to be, but your 3-year degree is pretty standard. Fine art. Did all that,
And
and I
what was your
wish
degree in?
it's in fine art painting.
Oh, it was.
So
Okay.
a foundation course, I decided actually within my first term I wanted to do painting. I went in there and I wanted to do painting. There wasn't really any question, but you jump through the hoops. So I did my degree, and that was all fine. And did my degree in Manchester, which is kind of up north for us, which we would say is a long way away, and you would say is around the corner. It's about 3 hours north of here.
Mhm.
And stayed up there for a couple of years, playing sort of poor artist in a garret. But what's interesting, Jeff, and what I really wish I'd brought with me, I could have showed you on the screen, was what I was doing at art college. So when I was doing my foundation course, I was painting kind of in the vein of this, a bit more fauve, I'd say, a bit looser, a bit more brighter color and stuff. And then when I went off my degree, I remember going out drawing in Manchester and bringing back some sketches, and my tutor said to me, "It looks like a knitting pattern." And
Really?
it was kind of one of those moments where the needle scratches on the record, all the music stops, and I went, shit. So I try not to swear there. It came out, uh, and and then the head of the course. Then our tutors were not very hands on, and there was not much was no instruction going on. I mean, art colleges, I don't know what they're like them, but the UK art colleges then were very student-centered learning, was very, should we be teaching anything really? What is art sort of thing. So we're all kind of very confused. And
Mhm.
and our head of the course was a modernist, so Clement Greenberg. We were all into American open field abstract painting, and that's where I went. And it's amazing. And when I do talks, I show this painting I did in my degree show, and it's literally 5 squares of color. Jeff, it's just
Like a
hilarious. So I
Rothko
did
kind of a
that.
thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, kind of what I wanted to do is sort of turn it into a bit of a science on color studies or something. I don't know, but I really didn't. I didn't know. I spent basically 3 years of my degree, and then 2 years afterwards it took 5 years to discover this is not what I want to do, and this isn't me for at all. So eventually kind of gave it up and sort of, did what the rest of the world did and started just getting a job and earning some money. And then I say we moved down to Bath, and that was when I kind of suddenly got this inspiration to just draw this place. I found it quite inspirational. And the great thing was at that stage, I decided to leave art with a capital A behind, not worry about whether I was going to be a great contemporary artist, and just do what I wanted to do and paint with my heart as opposed to with my brain, because I don't have much of a brain. But I do know what I love and I know what moves me, sort of thing. And so that was it. And it's great, actually. It's great to kind of put down all that baggage that you kind of feel that you pick up at art college, all this nonsense about am I a genius and just rubbish like that that kind of doesn't exist anyway, and just forget all that and not worry about whether you're relevant or anything like that, and just do what you know what suits you best in a way. Yeah, so that
How
was it. And
ironic
then
is that? So you put that down, and then now you're extremely relevant. I mean, I'm sure you don't see yourself that way, but you are. It's just ironic. Once you put down the ego and then just start painting what you love, if it's going to work out, that's when it's going to work out.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you must find that that's true for any artist, isn't it? You
Hmm.
can, I mean, I actually, hmm, I think we should get on this route. But I had a run-in with an art critic, and he's written a book about how to become an artist, which makes me laugh a bit. But
Hmm.
ended up reading it, and in it he bangs on about being true to yourself, and all that sounds kind of arty and sort of, you know, hot air, but it's true. You can't pretend to be someone else. And when people talk about developing styles, it scares the hell out of me, because I think, well, the idea of developing a style is that should just a style. You shouldn't be talking those terms. It should just be natural what happens, and you should, it should just by doing what you do, what happens happens. And the idea of, you know, deliberately trying to be a certain style is a bit scary, isn't it? Because it means you're not being what you're built to be, what you are, I suppose.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That whole phrase, you have to be yourself, or how did he put it? Um,
um, I don't know. I can't remember, I can't remember what
I
he
mean,
said, but
you just said it, but I'm
being true to yourself,
being
I
true
think,
to
or something.
yourself. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So I remember
yeah,
when I was in college, and you see it all the time today, particularly in these modern art programs, like it sounds like you had,
yeah.
where the teachers really preach this idea that you have to be something different and you have to find, as you put it, you find your style, blah, blah. And they might even say be true to yourself. But the problem is people go on these journeys where they quote unquote try and find themselves. And I just find that so funny because you're right there. What's to find? Just paint, I mean, and so we
Oh,
end
it's
up
so
with a
general.
lot of artists that are just are looking for, quote unquote, looking for themselves, and then they end up finding someone else. Or they do you know what I mean? And it's just paint. You're already there. There's
Brilliant.
nothing to find. Stop looking. Just you're right there, you
In
know?
a way, yeah, you're right. You're right. I think also, I mean, let's not slag off art colleges, because I don't know what they're like now. I'm an old man,
No, they're
and
still like that, a lot of them.
okay.
Yeah.
But there's a ridiculous attitude that at degree, when you qualify, you are like, we had the young British artists in the 90s sort of thing, and they qualified and they went out and they started their own. That's it. You're now a fully fledged, fully formed artist with, and you are the G. And it's just such nonsense. It's like
It's so
we just put
funny.
our egos away for 5 minutes and just crack on and just do your own thing and just learn bit by bit. Let's do things. And anyway, I don't want to slack. I mean, I have huge respect for a lot of modern artists. A lot of British ones that do really interesting stuff. Nothing to, in a completely different world to mine, and I think it's really interesting. So I don't mean to slag that stuff off at all, but it's just not for me. My practice.
Right.
That's,
No, I
uh,
agree. I think some abstract art is exceptional, but
mm,
it's not for everybody, right?
no, exactly.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, dude, I need to take this slideshow down because I'm enamored with it as you're talking, and just it's just
It's
so
distracting.
good, dude. It's so good. All right, so I want to talk about your technique a little bit.
Okay.
Um, one of the things that I find really difficult about painting, I mean, I've really never done a city painting because I'm scared to, but what I would assume would be very difficult, and the reason I'm intimidated by it is it's just so much information to manage. If you paint a tree, you can just simplify the tree into basically a green ball, right? I'm oversimplifying, obviously, and I'm not I'm not making light of how difficult landscape painting is. It is. That's why I keep having landscape painters on, because I want to get good at that too. But with cityscape, there's so much critical information, and you have to manage all that information. Do you have techniques for that? Do you have like devices, ways to kind of control all the chaos?
No. So it's
No, dang it.
like it's like there's I mean, everyone talks about blocking in and stuff like that. So I suppose you could do that,
Yeah.
and sometimes when you get in trouble, you go, look, Pete, chill out, you know, I mean, what I say to myself is, what can you see? Okay, Pete, there's 2,000 people in front of you, or whatever it is, or hundreds and hundreds of windows, but what can you see? What can you really see? Now, that's to everyone watching this podcast, they're going to go, yeah, right. This is how we're all painting like that. But I mean, it's saying it over and over and over to myself and not getting overwhelmed by all that detail. And sometimes, to see a crowd of people and to see it as a challenge in painting, how you're gonna portray that in paint and not paint every single person. But sometimes you do have to paint the separate windows and stuff like that. And that's when there's this thing with zebras I'm always talking about. So when a cheetah or somebody's after a zebra, the great thing they got is all these stripes, and all a cheetah can see is thousands and thousands of stripes. And she finds it very hard to find the one animal and all those stripes, because there's so many stripes. And that's one of the things you're fighting against, is all this
Yeah.
stuff. And sometimes you have to hone in and look at that one little bit. And so I'm sort of doing doing quite a lot of measure drawing at the moment. But what really, that's just like in the last couple of years where I'm trying to sort of nail that a bit at the beginning. But up until then, I'd been doing it very much by sort of very loose eye. And what I would do is I'd map things out over the board or the canvas, kind of, I want to get that church spire in, and will it all fit in, and more or less will that go there, and does that all work? But then after a bit, I'd hone in on something, and very often it was a car or something. And that's when I'd find my natural scale. So I don't know if I was drawing life size or more than life. I don't know. I think I was probably blowing up a bit, Jeff. I'm not really sure. But I'd find the scale on a car or something, because I'd hone in on that. And then things get scaled back up from there, sort of thing. So it's a lot of toing and throwing in a nutshell. There's a little bit of, oh, for Christ's sake, just chuck a load of raw umber on, my favorite color, or, and let's start working backwards. Let's try working some detail into there. But then, I mean, that one that's up now, I think it's up now with the sort of the 2 points perspectives I'm talking about. That was, a lot of that was drawn out first. In fact, on my Instagram, you can see the drawing lines of.
Let's pull that up real quick. Let's pull up your Instagram.
So we're all looking at the same thing.
Oh yeah, we're looking. Yeah. So this is it right here.
So that middle box, second row, so you go down one, Jeff.
Okay, right here.
Middle box, that one there. So that's my anal. That's as tight as I get. That's my 2 points.
Yeah, that's not coloring in the lines. That's hardly that. That's really rough.
Okay, but to me that's quite tight, because I worked out the exact height of those buildings of that. So and then you can all see the 2 vanishing points there, sort of thing.
Right.
The vertical vanishing point, as we all know, but it's so far up in the clouds that or if I think about it, I try and lean the buildings in a bit from the left and right.
But the vanishing point is off the canvas. So how are you?
Yes, it is.
How are you finding it?
So if you do actually go on Instagram, there's a video which I said at the beginning of the video, this will not be getting many likes, because you know what's like. So like that one there. So don't go to it, Jeff. It goes on forever and ever. But in that, I talk about the 2 vanishing points, and one is on. I think one on the left might be on the canvas, but on the right, I point out on this bin, and next to me, sorry, a trash can, as you call it, is a trash can where I've put a mark. I've worked out where it is, and as long as I stand in the same spot, so I've marked my feet, and the canvas stays the same, and I can kind of more or less work out where it is. So it's
no kidding. Did you actually paint the garbage can?
So there's a spot on the garbage can. In fact, if you're really mad and you've got absolutely nothing in your lives, you could go to the spots where I paint and find 2 lemon yellow dots where I mark out the easel, and sometimes two footprints where I mark out where I'm going to stand. But if you find yourself doing that, you really need to get a life. So don't do that. But so yeah, in that. So I can't remember what we were talking about, but yeah, so that's I'm sort of marked it all out there. And if we go back to the main page of the Instagram, there's 3.
Well, we were just talking about how you manage chaos and.
Oh, the chaos, yeah.
The chaos, yeah.
So in that, all I'm saying is all that's drawn out. And sorry, let's go back to that drawing then, Jeff. So that middle one. So you can see there, I've drawn kind of what we would call a crossing lines, those white lines. I've already drawn the kind of weird wobbly perspective of it going over the contours of the road. So I've sort of worked out quite a bit there.
So what's this? Why does it go like this?
So that's a sort of like wobbly bit of this sort of tarmac sort of thing. And also they don't do those like, some are longer and some are shorter, so they sort of fall
Okay.
over the thing. I
Okay.
try to sort of follow the line a bit. So maybe exaggerate it a bit. So in a way, that's me. I mean, that is me. Just worked out as much as I can before I start slapping paint on. And then I heard first name Newton, the one who does the Swiss woman who does those amazing. Not she's not Swiss. She's American. She lives in Switzerland. Does amazing huge portraits
Oh,
on
oh,
your glass.
Cleo Newton. Yeah.
He said, so she talked about um, not being able to work things out, not being a linear, being able to work things out with line, proportion,
Right.
whatever. And I completely went with that. I'm a block it in, and then you can see whether it should be bigger or smaller. I really struggle with that. I'm always amazed at drawings of heads. How people can just do that beautiful line, angles and things like that.
Especially her, man.
Yeah,
She's
yeah, yeah, remarkable. Yeah,
she's
so
remarkable.
and how she does that from such small reference, I just feel with me. But yeah, when she was saying about blocking for thing, that's kind of I get that. That's kind of, I'm sure a lot of us paint like that we need to see how big it is by seeing how big the block is as opposed to delineating the outside of it. So I've
So
answered
how
your
much time do you
question.
put into a perspective
That
drawing
was
like
quite a
this?
long. That was about 1.5 hours, I think, probably doing that, just working out.
How I didn't hear that. How many hours?
1.5 hours, maybe.
So when you're doing that, aren't you? Well, I guess it's a cloudy day,
Yeah,
but I'd be
yeah.
thinking, oh my gosh, the light's changing, and I'm still drawing a perspective drawing. You know?
That's why, Jeff, I was quite chill about that because it was a cloudy day. But yeah, no, I am quite now at the moment. I'm quite happy to say that's the light I want. This is the painting I want to do. Right, let's stand here, get the drawing right, and then come back. And there's one a while ago,
Oh,
Manhattan.
you will. You'll come back to it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's right. So I come back, and the beautiful thing about New York, maybe I've got this wrong because actually my experience in 2017 was very different. But this year, certainly my last trip, is consistency. I mean, Sorolla was a good painter, right? But Sorolla in the south of Spain had very consistent light day on day, and he knew when he went out there at 8 o'clock, he would get exactly the same. So, and that consistency is really really helpful.
Hmm.
Um,
But New
so I
York
think
is like Britain. It's cloudy one day, partly cloudy the next, sunny.
okay, I got lucky this last
You
trip. I have
got
to say,
lucky. No, no, no.
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
a lot. I mean, that's why they call it New England, right?
Right,
Well, I
okay,
guess
yeah,
New York is technically the Atlantic states, but close enough.
yeah, yeah. So, but I kind of knew I could see from the weather forecast it's going to be quite consistent. So I was quite chill in saying,
What
right,
was
let's
it?
just
Consistently cloudy or consistently sunny?
it's sunny and beautiful.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
the temperature was, I was an Englishman and I was okay. It wasn't
Yeah, you
I
got
just
lucky.
yeah, I didn't go near it in July and August. I was told you'd melt, and apparently it was really hot. So, but yeah, so that's so yeah. To get back to your question, which is all that mess, there is a bit of like, all right, calm down, Pete. There's lots of stuff out there, but we can do this, can't we? I think we can. And the only way to do it is to get. At the moment, you've got a blank canvas. So as soon as you put something down, you're getting closer. So just keep doing that and get closer and closer and closer. And I'm a firm believer in. I've never really. I do some alla prima if I'm lucky every now and then. But on the whole, I'm like, doesn't matter. You can come back tomorrow. So
Oh, I was
I'm
going
a,
to ask you about that. So you
yeah,
do it multiple sittings.
yeah. I'm a real believer in that. I don't mind not being seen as. I don't mind being a plodder. I don't. I just want to get it right. And if that takes a long time, and if you lose a bit of the panache, then so be it. Because I just want to get. When I'm
Hmm.
standing with that scene there, when I'm standing in that corner, I'm in love with that place. The canal of Chinatown is just a remarkable place, and I want to get those buildings, all the good bits and the bad bits, and all the graffiti. I want to get it right, and I want to do it justice. And so I'm quite happy spending, and actually that painting I did in 2 days, but 2 long days. 2 long days, 7 till 7, 7 till 7 sort of thing.
Well, this day was obviously cloudy. These two
Yeah.
days were obviously
Yeah, those
cloudy.
2 days. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
that was almost finished there, I think. Not quite, but getting there. So um, So yeah, so I yeah that because the beauty with going away and coming back, and if you can go away and come back in the same light, and of course that's the issue, is you suddenly get that, when you step back from a canvas and you try and sort of see it objectively, you get that in your face because there's your estimate at it, and you look at it and you look at the view and you go, well, Pete, you've got that bang, that's really wrong, and things jump out. And so if you go back over 2 3 days and that keeps happening, and you can just get it closer and closer, I suppose. I mean, to a certain extent, you're not trying to completely copy it, but
Right.
just
Are you
do it as
using a
much
fast
justice.
drying white so that you have a dry painting every day?
Yeah, I do. I don't. I use. So I do have a couple of titanium whites. I have a number three. I think there's a Mike Harding number three, which I think just has liquid in it or something. I don't know what it is, and it tends to dry a bit quicker than the other titanium whites. And I've just started using. I love these things when you can be all nerdy. I just started using an unbleached titanium as a white, so that I
Unbleached? I've
can.
never even heard of that.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how they make titanium. I don't know anything about these pigments.
I
I'm
don't
honestly just
either. Yeah.
no. So it's just basically a kind of off white, a sort of slightly beigey white. But
Oh,
if I can use that as a white, you were talking to Cleo about punching in darks, those dark colours at the end with
yeah.
charcoal. You were getting very technical about charcoal, and talking about a particular stick of charcoal, and that kind of struck home because there's always that tonal range you want to get, don't you? And if I can use something like unbleached titanium as a sort of white, then it gives me a bit of
Uh,
scope at the end to go, yeah, but now I've got some real white that can really kind of,
oh, that's smart. That's
quite
smart.
and I kind of got that from Ken Howard. Do you know who I mean by Ken Howard?
No, I'll have to look him up. Would he
Good
be a
fun.
good
Good
interview?
fun. Sadly dead. No, he can't. He's dead. Sadly, he died a
Oh,
couple of years ago at the 8 grand. He had a good innings. He was a terrific painter, very much in the British tradition, and he kind of, for a lot of us, put us straight on tone. And he kind of nailed the contre-jour painting in if for the likes of me. He would do like his classic was the Grand Canal looking into the light in Venice sort of thing, and those drops he called them drops of gold, and it was basically a way of just keeping it keyed down. And then when you come to put in the light pinging off the water, it's obvious, everyone comes sure everyone knows this, but that's always in my head. Just try and keep it down. Don't get too excited. Stay English, and then at the end, you've got some scope to put some beautiful bit of light in, or and or a kind of a dark, a sort of black.
hmm.
Um, I think that's
What
probably.
brand is this unbleached white?
Uh, is
I've
it
never
Old
heard
Holland?
of it.
It might be Old Holland. It might be Mike Harding, I think. I've only seen it. Actually, no, I got
Well,
it because
where
I
you're
ran.
in your studio, can't you tell us for sure?
Well, I
Don't you
can.
have it in there with you?
I got some in Blick when I was in. We landscape art stores. I got some in an art store in New York.
So they
And
don't
it
carry
was
Michael Harding, I don't think, at Blick. They
no,
carry
but this was.
Gamblin, Rembrandt, Winsor
Give me another one.
Newton.
Give me another one. One made in Brooklyn, apparently, begins with a V.
Maybe they do at different
Hang
cities.
on, I'll go get it. I'll go find
Okay,
it.
yeah.
If I can do that, I'll just sit here. So, of course, yeah, I had a second home in Brooklyn. So, well, not I don't have a second home in Brooklyn. Someone lent me a flat, so all my stuff's over there.
Ah,
Oh,
bummer. You know
that's a
what? Do
real
me a
bummer.
favor if you think of it, we'll put it in the show
I'll
notes.
let you
Let,
know.
let me know.
Let you
Yeah,
know.
let me know because a
Yeah.
lot of people I think would also be curious about that.
I mean, basically, it's just not a pure white. It's like, I mean, you can get it, but it's darker than a warm white.
Is
And
it darker than a lead white?
yes, yeah.
It
Yeah. I
is.
mean, yeah. I mean, it's seriously beige. It's kind
Really?
of. I mean, you could. Sorry, as motorbike going by. You don't. I'm sure there are other colours that are just the same, Jeff. Or you could just stick a bit of colour in your white. It's
Right.
just. I've just come across it sort of helping to me. I mean,
Yeah, but it'd be
control
nice.
me.
You could stick a little bit of color in your white, but it'd be nice to kind of believe that it's white. You know what I mean? Like just have that
Yeah,
as your
right.
white, so you believe it, and then you paint the whole painting, and then as you put it,
Yeah, good
come
one.
back in with your highlights, and bam, bam, just make it pop. I like that idea. Huh.
Mm.
All right, let's pull your web or your Instagram back up here. All right. Well, I'm grateful to know that you can come back, like that you're coming back, because the other question I had was how do you manage all the layers of color with such detail? Because you're not getting muddy, you're putting this really clean red awning here over the, in this area of grays, and it's just pops. And I'm assuming that part of the reason you can
So
pull that off.
I'm thinking ahead a bit. I'm knowing that's gonna be red. That's kind of
So you're
so
keeping it
I
clean.
think ahead, keep it clean. Also wipe off. So I have we call them cotton buddies, but things you clean your ears out with,
Oh,
whatever.
Q-tips.
Yeah, Q-tips. That's right.
Yeah.
So I use them for little bits, and I wipe away stuff. Just think a bit, because uh, and make sure I clean my brushes more than I want to and things like that in between stuff. So just being a bit sensible and thinking ahead a bit and trying to be a bit controlled, really. Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit of painting I do. Obviously, but we all paint into wet, but
Now,
just
is this
think
a
about what I'm
finished
doing,
painting?
really, and think ahead a bit if I can.
Is this a finished painting?
No, that's not finished. Not quite finished. The
Okay.
finished one.
Well,
I
let's
don't
see
have
the
a.
finished one because I wanted to ask you something about that. Do you
Okay,
have it here?
so you go. I don't have finished that because that's in New York, and I couldn't get it photographed. Couldn't get
Oh,
it
well, let me
back.
ask you then. Let me ask you what.
It's
So
close to finished. Yeah.
it's close to, so this van or whatever this is just drawn in. This figure is just sort of outlined and partially painted.
Yeah.
Are you leaving stuff like that in a
So that
finished
leg
painting?
on that one, we got the arrow there.
Yeah.
So that leg isn't. No, that still is like that, and I might leave it like that. If you could find the one of 86th Street, you had your reel of stuff going off. So not in there.
Is it just me or the rest of you guys also get weirdly excited when you order new paint? Because I don't know about you, but when I get paint in the mail, it feels like Santa just dropped my Christmas presents off at my doorstep. With Vasari Paint, my paint of choice and the podcast sponsor, it's even more exciting. And let me show you why. Because when Vasari shows up, it comes in this incredible box where each tube lays in this little compartment perfectly formed around the tube in this nice soft foam. And it's surrounded by velvet, red velvet. Now you got to ask yourself, if a paint comes so carefully protected and surrounded by red velvet, you got to wonder if this paint is worthy of royalty. It is. Vasari is. So if you haven't tried Vasari, you're seriously missing out. And the thing about Vasari, it's not only the best paint out there, it's also made by an incredible company that's been around for 30 years and knows its customer by name. Do yourself a favor, go to VasariColors.com and order yourself some for your next painting.
Well, if you might find it in there, keep going down, Jeff. It might be quite a scroll. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. No, just go up. So one more, just to there. I don't know about finished
The
painting. But if you can
bridge?
if you can get to that bridge, there's a figure in there. So that boy on there, that guy there, you see, I've left him
Yeah,
like
he's
that.
unfinished. Wait, let's see if we got.
Sorry, it's a video. How annoying. But his
Okay.
leg is unfinished. Really annoying. I beg your pardon.
And you
Jeff.
left it that way. You
But that's
left it.
I just thought with painting here, Pete, and I could fill it in dead easy, stick a block of colour, but I quite like the idea of that. So every now and then I do leave a bit, which is a sort of, which is the painting bit. If you look to the left of that bit, actually, Jeff, there's a sort of blank canvas with just a car in the middle. So that was sort of so that's the
What?
sort of
Is
thing.
that normal that you would start like that?
I just thought it's quite funny. I was looking straight down Fifth, I think it is, in one of the cycle lanes that you get in the middle a bit, don't they? I think I'm on the 23rd or something. And these enormous cars you have, I just thought I just wanted to get that car right and that figure. And in fact, that painting's almost finished. Haven't got it here. I can't show you it, but they didn't actually end up in the finish. Both of those went, but it was a way of getting the scale and getting my handle on kind of how big things are.
And is that typical that you would just really zero in on one thing before the rest of the canvas is laid in?
Not brilliantly typical, but in a way, it's sort of it's a bit over the top that. But I do that because it's a way of me working out where the tone's going to go. Someone said to me recently about working out my values, and things like that are a complete anathema to me. And I thought, what do you mean? You work out all your colours and all your tones before you start putting on the canvas. To me, you've got to put it on the canvas before you know if it's right. Until you've got, and the more you put on, the more you hone it. So it's constantly honing, and I
Yeah.
can't work on that beforehand, sort of thing. I'm great. I managed to do I can. So I'm just when I so that ground on that canvas, I look at those grounds, that sort of sludgy end of day sludge, whatever it is. It's sort of it could be anything. I look at them and I go, now is that going to be my sidewalk in light, or is that going to be my sidewalk in shade? And I think, I don't know which way to go here. It's quite funny, and you think,
Well, wait a minute, but isn't the landscape revealing the answer, or are you?
well, so yeah, I mean, you don't know until I start slapping it on, then it does change. So I can admit at the start thing. I think that's the cool tone that I want in my shadow. I don't know, and I can leave it, and then at the end think, actually, no, you got that. It isn't, you know. But until I start getting it all slapped on, I don't really know for sure. And I mean, sometimes I do leave bits of underpainted, canvas like that, raw canvas that seems to answer the question okay. If I'm feeling brave. More often than not, I end up covering it all up.
Hmm. So just to be clear, when you say you don't know, it's because of context. You a gray
Yeah,
looks like a different gray next to red than it does next to
absolutely right.
green.
Absolutely right.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So you're
yeah.
not trying to decide from a creative standpoint, like, oh, I want a purple sidewalk versus a blue sidewalk.
God,
No,
God, no, no,
it's
no, no, no,
relative
no.
color, relative
Yeah,
color.
relative color. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
absolutely.
That's what I thought, but I just wanted to
Yes,
clarify. Okay.
I do make a right meal of things. I could say things much simpler. I do apologise.
No, no, no. I think you were clear, but I just wanted to
Yeah,
make sure I understood. Okay.
yeah.
No, this painting, dude. I wish I could own all your paintings. I probably can't afford one of them, but I would love to own all of them. My whole house decorated in your work. But this
I've
is
got
just
that one.
exceptional, man. So one of the questions I have that I've seen in a few paintings we pulled up so far is figures. How do you manage the figures? They're obviously moving in and out of the painting scene.
Yeah.
Are you just pulling them in, putting them in, pulling them out, putting them in, pulling them out? And do you
So
ever
that
ask them to freeze, or you just take a mental note and kind of fake it?
Yeah, mental note and fake it. They're not great figures in there. So in a nutshell, I'm going to try and be really quick on this one, and not
I think they're
whittle too
pretty
much.
awesome.
So, well, there's
These ones in the front, you got that kid like in motion, but yet it's
okay,
just a
yeah.
few strokes. That's pretty cool.
So there is a bit when things interesting happen, it sticks in your head a bit more, doesn't it? You know, when I remember seeing a woman in London lighting I can't show you really here, but she had a handbag. She had a cigarette in her mouth and she was trying to get her lighter out of the handbag. So she put her knee up, was balancing the handbag on her knee, getting the lighter out of her handbag. And it was a remarkable pose. And because it was kind of so interesting, because she had to balance herself, so her
Yeah.
shoulders one way, her hips were the other way, it was kind of easy to remember. You know, so and those sort of slightly exaggerated poses sometimes. So when someone's walking or when someone's carrying something heavy and they're leaning the other way, those sort of things are the sort of things that are better to remember sometimes. And what I do is I don't worry about local color. I just have a loaded soft, small, round brush, number 4 or something, or whatever, or hog hair or something, and just quickly mark out stuff for me to remember. And I'm getting slightly better at that. I'm beginning more to trust my memory a bit more as well. Just I will sometimes just stare at a figure and just go, right, try and remember how bits are. I mean, sometimes it works, yes, sometimes it doesn't work. And sometimes, you do something and go, well, that was supposed to be a running figure, but it looks like someone bending over. I quite like that. So,
You got to run with
go
it.
with it. And the idea is just to kind of get the idea of sort of people sort of moving through, but and I do love the idea of trying to get people that were actually there, and sometimes you can. Sometimes people are people don't fidget too much and they do kind of stand still, and you can get a sort of idea of it. But with cars, very often I kind of wait for them to stop at the lights, so I get a bit of an idea. And
So
a lot
you
of them
got like 1 minute at most to make a recording of it.
Yeah, but a lot of them are sort of mongrels, or you wait for another one of those types of cars will be
Right.
along,
Oh,
a bit
okay.
of patience and stuff like that. It's quite interesting. I'll be undone in my New York paintings because I don't know American cars. So it takes you a while to work out kind of hoods and trying to think what the other end are called, but whatever you call them, but all the different bits of a car. So
Are they
you're
really
looking-
that much different, American cars? Do you
Well,
guys
of
not
course
have
they
American
are,
cars in
yeah.
Britain?
Damn right. Yeah, I mean, the sort of European car is very different to an American car. You like size over there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
So,
it's not just our cars, it's our homes too. Square footage. Square footage is all anyone cares about in the US.
You got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It could be a cardboard box, but if it's 6,000 square feet, it's better than a 3,000 square foot luxury home.
well, there you go.
6,000 square
we
foot
got it.
cardboard box worth more. It's so ridiculous.
Okay. Well, I won't comment on that. But yeah.
I
So
don't know.
this building here, Jeff, it's called a Michelin building or Michelin building, I suppose. But it was where they made tires, in Michelin tires. I don't know if you have them in the States, but we had these French Michelin tires, and it was just a beautiful Art Deco building that I've driven past hundreds of times in London, and just thought there wasn't an angle, and just one day I thought, stuff it, let's just paint the building, and if it's a painting, it's a painting. If it's not, it's not. And the thing about buildings like that is everybody knows them, people have huge connection with them, and in a way you sort of touch a bit of a nerve quite well, sort of thing. And yeah, it's a lovely building. As I'm looking at it, I can see it's wobbly. I can see the right-hand side is a bit low. It's annoying looking back at your old stuff, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I do see that. You pointed that out. Right here is a little bit lower than over here.
Yeah, look at that. Isn't that annoying?
Yeah, but dude, it's so you got to cut yourself some slack, man. I mean, that's not easy to manage that stuff.
It's not, but just get it
Yeah.
right.
I'd s-
Anyway, there you go.
You know what though? I don't think you should put this out in public. I'll give you my mailing address. You could send it to me. I don't want the rest of the world to have to see it.
Okay. Yeah, all right, Jeff. It's in the post, mate. We do a swap, all right?
Yeah, you don't want to put that out there.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Man, okay. So then these interiors are exceptional too. And what a great little figure. Of course.
It costs money, that does. That's a daughter, and that costs you about £12 an hour. That's
You had to pay her for real?
$16 an hour, that is, that one there. Yeah.
I know I had to pay my kids too.
Terrible.
Oh
mate.
man. It's like your
Is
kids.
that or iPads? They're on an iPad and iPhone. And they do all the kids look. They like someone posted once about my paintings that they were they're in Victorian homes. So they're in a sort of rather lovely home, but they all look like they're completely bored out of their brains because they're all just like zombies looking at their phones. So you have to kind of. But that's the space. Yes, that's the space I'm in now, sort of thing. So it's a nice room, and it's a nice room to paint. It took me a while to realise it was actually good subject matter. I always wanted a north-facing studio like we all do. This is east-facing, but actually the light coming in is quite a good thing to paint. And the beauty with interiors is it's quite consistent. Obviously, the light's moving, but you can get there at the same time, same place the next day. You've got a lot more. I've discovered you've got a lot more control, and so it's nice to have that as a sort of another end to doing the plein air stuff, really.
Yeah, that is a great space. I love all the paint on the floor. There's something about painting old spaces that even with a little bit of a mess to them that comes off really well in paintings.
That's the interesting. I mean, that amazing Kybot of the floor scrapers, which is just like got some sort of reflection in the varnish, and I mean, it made this to bang on about this guy Ken Howard, because I do recommend people look at his work. But he was employed by the Imperial War Museum to be their war artist, and he's working in the Troubles in Northern Ireland, and he's got some amazing paintings that he actually kept hold of himself, which were of graffitied walls, and they're just beautiful paintings of just graffiti on a wall. Enormous painting. So you can see where Pete Brown is, where I got my influence from. And
wait, so this is the right guy.
So if you go to the left, that one there in particular, this is a classic Ken Howard wet street scene.
Oh, right here.
Addition there, so that's that's Bank in London sort of thing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
those large paintings have done. What he would do is he'd work on small, in fairly small panels in the flesh, and then take them back to the studio and keep that freshness, which I've never worked out how on earth he did. And I just simply can't work from reference in the studio, but can manage to keep that
Oh,
amazing
he'd
freshness.
use a photograph. He'd come back with a photograph.
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't know.
You think he's painting from memory in the studio?
No, I think, well, no, not from memory. Sorry, no, Jeff. So he'd do a study on site. He'd do little oil
Oh,
paints.
and then blow it up in the
Yeah,
studio.
and I mean they're but it's keeping that freshness on such a large scale. You can't see it here because it's obviously a small reproduction. But these are these are kind of like 5 foot high. These paintings, they're remarkable.
Really?
Yeah, really big studio paintings he's doing.
No
Um,
kidding. And you don't
yeah.
think he was using photography?
No, no, he wasn't. I know Ken did. I mean, Ken might have used your photography. He wasn't quite as pompous as me about things like that. But no, he was a plein air painter. And in fact, when he started, he was doing just painting on grade A's because he wanted to do that thing that's about getting tones right. So this was his amazing studio in Chelsea. He ended up being extraordinarily successful, and we were all very jealous of Ken.
Wait, Chelsea, New York, or is there a Chelsea
Chelsea, London.
in
Yeah.
London? Okay.
Yeah. But amazing grafter. He would work 7 to 7 every day. It was amazing inspiration really for us all. So
He's good.
he was good. But tonally, he always said he wasn't he always said he was a tonal painter and not a painter of colour. But the colour's so important in that. The colour, he says that's tone, but the colour's so important. In the tree and how it changes down the tree, and it's just as much about color as tone to me.
I got to tell you, man, he's brilliant. Don't get me
Yes.
wrong, but I
Yeah.
think you're better.
Oh, stop it! Don't say
No,
that.
I
won't-
do. I
won't
think you're
have that.
better.
I won't have that. Anyway, yeah,
He is
yeah.
brilliant. I'm not speaking ill of him. I mean, he's incredible, but I think you're better. That's
That'd be
great. Oh, no, you don't need to see my email, everybody. Okay. All right. Hopefully not. They didn't get a glimpse of anything private there. All right. So let's see what else we got here. If there's anything, oh, look at this. A landscape. Sort of, but you threw some architecture. You got some
Of course
architecture
I
in
did.
there.
I need something to tie it on. So that's kind of alla prima. That's so I took me and my son went off to a very lovely little resort in France in the Alps, do a bit of skiing. As you can see, end of season, the only time we can afford it really. And I just slipped down a mountain. I'm awful, as you can imagine, but so I just have to disappear. I cannot not paint. I have to just. And he would say, "Go paint, Dad. Chill out and come back and just relax for a minute," sort of thing. So I do the odd little thing when we go away. So I just expect to do that. And
So for you, you just have this drive to constantly be painting. You don't ever have to force yourself to go out and paint.
well, we all do to a bit, don't we? But but the thing I struggle with, I feel guilty. I feel guilty if I'm not, and I feel out of touch. You know what it's like, Jeff. You've got to, haven't you? You've got to keep in touch with drawing and painting, and you don't. I used to do a lot. This is what I don't do a lot of now. I used to do a lot of sketching in my sketchbooks, which don't really go on public. There's somewhere on my website if you dig around, and they're not great, but they're line drawings for the kids. And I said I've struggled with line drawing, and particularly with that, I knew that if I did it a lot every day, or I did it every day, I got better with line and I got more fluid with line. And then and I haven't done it in a while, I did it a bit, but not as much as I'd like to now. Your line goes off. That confidence in line goes, and it's like that with painting and everything, isn't it? You just don't want to lose touch. You want to keep in the game, and I mean, I was brought up. I'm very lapsed now, but I was brought up. So I've got terrible hair. I was brought up a Catholic boy, and guilt's a big part of my life. I've lapsed sadly, but I've kept hold of that guilt, and so that sounds very negative, doesn't it? I love painting. I absolutely
Well,
love it.
it's actually nice. I like hearing this stuff because, one of the things that has been nice with the podcast is to be able to talk about that with other artists, because there's this cliche that a real artist just lives to paint. Like they get up in the morning and it's like they bleed linseed oil. You know, they just that's all they can it's all they can do with their lives. And I'm
Yeah.
not that person. And I just and I for many, many years I was like, is there something wrong with me? Am I like not like a legitimate artist? Because I have to force myself to work sometimes. I really
Yeah.
do. I don't have to force myself to work. I'm a workaholic, but I have to force myself to paint. Um, and sometimes.
Yeah.
But what you just said is spot on. It's like on one hand, well, here's an analogy for you. It's like, have you ever been working really hard and you're just so freaking hungry? And at some point, you just don't want to eat. You don't want to eat. You don't want to eat. But at some point, you just know you have to eat, and you just like, I'm gonna go eat. I just have to, or I'm gonna die. Like I almost painting is almost like that for me. It's almost like food. It's like sometimes I just don't want to do it,
I see.
but
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
don't do it,
Yeah.
I'm gonna regret it. I'm gonna regret it emotionally. I'm gonna regret it mentally. I'm just,
Yeah.
in the end, I'm gonna wish I had.
Mm.
You know?
Absolutely right. Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got to scratch that itch or whatever it is, but you've got to do it, and then you can relax. The thing is, though, with painting, and I'm sure perhaps a lot of things is you can, especially when on holiday. So Lisa, my wife, will say, "Let's go paint, Pete, and then come back and just be nice to the children, for God's sake." So I get sent out, and then you're under a little bit of pressure. It's not a great environment to do it, but I mean, she gives me the time, so I'm not whinging. But more often than not, you could do something a bit rubbish, and then you come back and you have to just, for everybody's sake, you have to say you've got your painting time to be nice, but you kind of can come back even more pissed off than you
Yeah,
went
you can't do a
because
rubbish
you
one and
did
come back
something.
happy.
Yeah, because you did something bad, and then you think, "Well, I needn't have bothered," but you kind of, it's life, isn't it? But um, and of course, I always say to myself, when you do a rubbish one, it's kind of we've all got rubbish ones, a certain amount of rubbish ones, and a certain amount of good ones in us. So if you do a rubbish one, it means the next one's more likely to be good, we hope, or better.
Yeah.
So just kind of, and it's just all part of the process, isn't it, man?
Oh, yeah. For me, I work on big multi-figure paintings and they
Right,
last me like a year. So
right,
I envy artists like you that kind of get a fix, from maybe not day to day, but maybe every other day or every 3 days, you have something finished and it's like you get that fix of having created something
yeah.
because
You can
that
get
fix
into
only
it
comes
now.
once a year for me sometimes.
Yeah, that must be tough. So
Oh,
you
dude,
don't,
it's brutal.
so you don't do sketching. You must do sketch, Jeff. You must do.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get a little fix from drawing in my sketchbook and
Yeah,
stuff, right? And sketching and prep work and yeah,
yeah,
yeah, but it's not
yeah.
the same. It's not the same as having the piece of art like that you've been working toward. So, but this is the similarity is I could be working on like yesterday I was painting the fabric, the drapery on one of the figures
Right.
and that particular area of the painting started to look really good. But the day before I was working on it and I had to leave at the end of the day. It was like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. I got to go home eventually. And it wasn't there. It wasn't that it was going poorly. It just wasn't there yet. You know, that stage of a painting where it's not necessarily going bad, but it's still ugly. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's interesting because those days when I go home, I have to really work hard to not be a pissy a-hole. But then the days where it's like, ooh, yeah, that's starting to look good. Then I go home and I'm like, yeah, I'm like the coolest guy in the world to be around, just the nicest guy. It's just,
Yeah,
it's so,
can't
so I
leave.
can relate to that just at a little different
Yeah,
type of painting. But
yeah.
yeah, it's
It's
funny.
it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, everybody suffers from that and everything, don't they? But it's interesting you're saying about painting being your life and stuff. I remember there's a great guy in England called Adabanji Halliday. He's president of the Royal Institute of Oil Painters, but he's a great guy. He's full of life and he's amazing. And I remember he was painting like a nutter, and then he had kids. And I remember, us having a conversation about saying your painting's great, it is wonderful, but it isn't everything. And family. No, this is really corny. Beg me, but give me that actually it has to be put in context, and it's not everything, and there are better things in life and more important things. I remember watching a video on a senior roll academician who's still around, British one. Someone did this wonderful video on him, and he talks about not being able to paint with near his family, and he moves away from his family. He leaves his wife and 2, 3 kids, whatever it is, in South London, and goes and lives in North London. And I think,
Ouch.
I don't want to judge him. I won't mention his name, but I think that's getting it wrong. I think, but that's very moral of me, I know. But I think, for me,
Yeah, there are better things. Painting is not everything. It's
well,
just
my wife always reminds me, Pete, it's not that important, mate. And she's right. It's just painting,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's just oil paint at the end of the day.
So there's a joke that I often tell. My wife hates this joke, but I work my whole life to make a masterpiece, and I don't think I've ever made one yet in
Right.
painting.
Okay.
But it only took me about 20 seconds to make each of my 3 kids, and they're perfect.
Yeah, I like 20 seconds. That's very, very.
Yeah, I was a little younger then.
Yeah, well,
You can see why she
Lisa
hates
would
that
like
joke.
that joke. My wife would like that joke. She'd say, absolutely.
Well, it
20
took her
seconds.
9 months, and we've been working on them 18 years. But what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I'm missing that point brilliantly. Like that. Yeah,
I just think that's too funny. But it's true
Yeah,
though.
okay.
It's like, man, that's the best thing I've ever made. Those 3 kids. It's not to be all.
We phrase it.
What's that?
Absolutely, yeah.
It is.
Sorry,
How many kids do you have?
We got. Well, I always say Lisa's got, because they are. I did have something in it, but yeah, 5. You got 5 of them.
And how old are they?
Well, the youngest is 15 now, so they're beginning to become independent. The oldest is 26. So
Awesome. Yeah, that's.
But
Are
yeah,
any of them
really-
artists?
no, they have half a brain, so they have options. I never had an option.
I'm not gonna take offense to that because 2 of my kids are gonna be artists,
Sorry. That's compared to their father. Sorry.
and the
yeah.
one is gonna edit this video, so I'll just be like, "Hey, I love you. I don't care what he says about your lack of a brain. I love you." That's what I'll tell him.
Sorry. No,
I'm just kidding.
that's just my
No,
line.
it is a scary thing. I mean, as a dad, I'm nervous about
Are
it too.
are yours artistic, Jeff? Do they-
I that's the thing is yes. I mean, I could always tell by comparing myself to my peers. I could tell that I was different than the other kids.
Okay.
And my aptitude was different. I was drawing constantly as a little kid. And then as a teenager, sort of like from like 8 to 18, I didn't draw much. But when I did draw, it came really naturally.
Okay.
And it was usually like on the back of books or I mean, like in my notebooks in school, and I doodle and stuff. I mean, there was this one time I was drawing my teacher to make fun of him, like a caricature. I was in the 7th grade, I think. Maybe the 10th grade. 10th grade. I was in the 10th grade. I'm drawing my teacher while he's teaching, and all these kids are looking at me giggling, and then my teacher comes up to me, and he puts his hand down on the table pretty firmly and takes the drawing. And I'm like, oh man, I'm screwed. And then at the end of class, he says, I want you to talk to me after class. At the end of class, I sat there and waited till everyone left. And then I walked up to his desk all sheepishly, and he goes, "Can I have this?"
Brilliant.
Yeah. And I was like, "Sure. Is that all?" And he's like, "Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it." And I laughed.
Wow.
Yeah, that funny. So
And
I
he
had
got 3 Jeff HEIN portrait, for heaven's sake.
I'm
My
sure it was
goodness.
garbage, but he didn't think so.
So can I tell you a similar story? When I was painting, before I got back into drawing and painting in Bath, when I was back in '93 or whatever, we were on holiday with mates in Greece, and I was doing some little ink studies. And I did a ink study of someone I know. I think it's the best way to say it. Called Dave Vodin. If you're watching this, mate. And at the end of it, I said, "There you go, Dave. Do you want it?" And he said, "No."
Oh, that's harsh.
That was it.
Yeah, you're right. That's like the same.
What a git. Yeah. Anyway.
That's harsh.
I mean, yours wanted yours. Mine
Yeah,
didn't
that's
want.
too funny. Yeah, I'm gonna be thinking about this whole talent thing. I'm gonna be thinking about this. Like I've been
Well, you clearly got it, Jeff, but I haven't. That's the thing.
No, but look at what you do. Frankly, you're a better painter than me, man. And so
Nonsense. Yeah.
somehow you managed to make work trump talent. If you're telling me the truth, and you may be just being modest, I don't know, but if you're telling me the truth. But the beauty of that is that's so great for our listeners, right? Because there are a lot of listeners out there that are probably like, do I have talent? Should I just give this thing up? And maybe the answer is, if you got the work ethic, go for it.
I mean, you're a great teacher on it, and so you know that the most important thing is time, isn't it? It's just doing it and doing it.
That is the most important thing.
And that's a problem that most people just don't have it, because they've got to live and they've got to get money in and all that.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. So it's really, and of course, people, they say try and do it in those 5 minutes once they've fed their kids or done whatever, and it's just like, it's so hard, because you need those 2 hours of just rubbish doing nonsense before you start actually getting into doing anything decent, don't you? So it's we're lucky in that we can just swan around and do our thing for as long as we like, and have enough time to sort of make mistakes and hopefully things work.
Yeah, I was talking to Logan Loganoff yesterday. He went to school. He started at 15 and studied for 12 years. But I don't know if you know Logan Loganoff's work, but oh my gosh, this dude, he's only 30 years old and his work is off the charts. I mean, it's
Hating.
God, he's so good. And he's really cool guy, really down to earth, really nice guy. I mean, that's been the case for everyone I've had on here pretty much. It's like everyone's just super down to earth. But anyway, we were just talking about this, and he had said something about how obviously it takes a lot of work, but there are some times that people can do it really fast. And he had mentioned somebody who just went to school for like 3 years and was just a master painter after 3 years. It does happen, but for most people, it really just, you got to put in a boatload of time to get good at this. It's just really hard to get good at this.
Yeah.
I think anyway. But there are the rare prodigies out there that somehow figure it out quickly.
I mean, and that's
Yeah.
So I'm writing down Logan Loganoff. I'm looking on now.
Logan Loganoff. Yeah.
Is it OV at the end?
OV, yeah. Same first name twice with an OV at the end. That's the last name.
You just find people and you go, blimey.
No. Dude, I want your reaction. I'm going to pull him up right now because this guy's freaking good. Let's just pull him up on Instagram real quick. Okay, you're going to die. This guy. I mean, maybe it's not your thing, but holy crap. Like, is that remarkable?
Yeah.
He's 30 years old. Well, here's the crazy thing.
Look at that one. Go that middle one, 3 down. I want to see that.
Yeah, dude. Look at that.
That's, what is that, watercolor?
No, it's oil. Here's him painting it.
Here's very thin on that.
He's got a really Russian look. I mean, he studied at Repin Academy. So
say it again, Jeff.
He studied the Repin Academy in Russia, St. Petersburg, I think.
Right. Okay.
You've heard of the Repin. I mean, that's like in a famous school. Anyway, there was a video I thought of him. I don't know. I think it might have, but it was him painting this.
So go back to that one in the middle again. Right.
The middle one right here.
So you've spoken to him.
Yeah, we got about halfway done yesterday, and then we had some problems, but we're going to finish up later.
So this painting here, is this done in one go? It looks like it's all painted.
No, I don't think it's one go. No, it's big. It's big. This is him painting it right here. And then
okay.
It's a big painting. It's not, I don't think it's one go.
Yeah, no.
No, but here, check this painting out. Look at this is his like graduate piece. Wow. I mean, look at it. It's big. Look how big that is.
God.
Yeah, that's his graduate piece. Yeah, like a lot is in American schools, your graduate piece is farting on a canvas. It's like this is like legit stuff right here.
Not to be underrated, farting on the canvas. That's amazing. Yeah, he is. Wow.
Yeah, he's good, man. He's good.
Yeah, that's proper. Yeah, we just I'll look at that. What's interesting is it's great. It's just looking at people and just going in awe, which is what you're very good at. Great. And just, I mean, you don't rob it, but you realize what you can do, don't you? You realize what can be done. You know. I always think it's a bit like lifting veils. Just like you see something, and you go, "Oh my God, look, that's I've been looking," and
Yeah. Yeah. Look at him. Look at him. He's like 5 years old.
it's remarkable. Wow. God, no.
He's like,
I'm just looking at these blessed wrinkles over my face. This is a young. Look at him, hardly born.
he's like,
No.
he's going to love this. Anyway, let's talk because
Wow. You see, you just put me in a really. I don't know if I'm.
What are you talking about? You're a master painter as well. It's just, but
Yeah,
I wanted to.
All right. Well, okay. But he's good, isn't he? Yeah,
He is really good, and it's apples and oranges too, because he's doing the figure, you're doing the cityscape.
Okay. Yeah, we use that, Jeff. Yeah, we use that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he's great. Yeah, I love it.
Why did I bring him up? I don't even remember now.
We were talking about hours. Yeah, we're talking about hours.
Oh, yeah.
Some
Hours,
people learn quickly, and some people can.
And it's true. It's true. I mean, I've had students that have just a lot of talent, and they work really hard, and they can go pretty quick.
Yeah.
But there are other students that take a really long time, but they eventually figure it out. But what's crazy is there are some people that come to my school and they're just like, and I told Logan this too, but they're like, I got 2 years. I got 2 years to figure this out. Make me a great artist. I'm like, 2 years. Maybe we should start with a RQ test, because you better be brilliant. I don't know what to do with that. And I'm sure someone in the comments will be like, well, that's because you suck as a teacher. Well, maybe, but
no, completely. I mean,
it takes a long time to get good, man. I mean, I've been at this 2000 I started painting. So 24 years, and I still can't do this. I want to be able to do this.
You could do that. But you've got to.
I can do some things well, but I can't do this. I'll admit I can paint well, but I can't do this.
All right, Jeff, let's look at that blue obelisk thing on the right-hand side of that painting.
Yeah. Right here.
How is that? I mean, look at it. I'm going to blame the photograph, because I probably took the photograph and angle reduced glare, but the left-hand side is leaning in, the right-hand side is going straight up. That is killing me at the moment. So that
maybe it is the photo. That might be lens distortion. Yeah, let's just say it's.
Yeah, let's go with that. Yeah, but those sort of things really niggle me, and I think, I mean, it can be easily sorted out, but that's what sort of easily sorted out. So it's not a biggie, is it?
But if you can't sort it out, just throw it in the mail with the other painting.
Okay.
I'm really buying for something here.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. Now, you mentioned earlier crowds. That is something that it really is something else.
This is video, so you don't get it, but
yeah. Let me see if I can find one.
I've been doing Jeff's online mentorship program for about a year now, and it is awesome. Everything is online, super streamlined. If you can be there, I mean, you have the ability to talk to him once a week, and he can review your work and help you. If you can't be there, it's pre-recorded. You can go back and even re-watch things if you missed something during class or couldn't be there. So the online portion of it is almost better than real life, because you can always go back to it, which is awesome. The demos are recorded. It's just like all available whenever you need it. And I'm a stay-at-home mom of 4, and my time is limited, and it's also very interrupted. And so to be able to go back has been clutch for me. And you get to work with Jeff HEIN, who's awesome. He's tough. The assignments are simple, but difficult, and they're difficult to make us all better. And he's able to give us these assignments, coach us through it, help us stay excited to progress. And so it's just been a great experience. I am so grateful that he has been willing to take time away from his own art to offer all of us to have it. So if you're thinking about doing it, it's amazing.
To learn more about how you could have me as a personal mentor, check out the link to HEINatelier.com in the show notes or video description.
But that's quite interesting. That was exactly that. Was that particular? It's annoying that that's not. Oh, there you go. There's a still of it. So we can't really see it that well. But basically, I mean, there's nothing in there in a way. It's just the idea of a crowd and what can you do. Well, and for that, I was just like, what can you see, Pete? You know, what can you see? I think
Yeah, but you
see.
must be doing
what you-
something. You must be okay. For example, let me speculate. Speculate's not the right word. Let me go over how I would think through this, and you tell me if I'm wrong. Okay. I would think you would really have to be thinking about when you're doing all these somewhat random, chaotic dots that represent heads and shoulders and whatever about here, that you have to think about the temperature and contrast, reduce the contrast, cool the temperature at the very least about here, not to mention scale. And then as you make all these chaotic dots and marks out here, you got to maybe bring up the chroma, warm up the temperature, increase the contrast. I mean, are you thinking about those kinds of things to create the depth, or is it just second nature to you? You're just throwing paint down.
Is you must be much more intelligent than me, Jeff, because I don't
I doubt
think
that.
in those. I don't think in those terms.
You're
So
not really.
No, I'm just going. I'm looking at it and saying, what color can you see? What's the overall color? So maybe I'm making an approximation of that, whether it is square centimeter of my vision or something, and putting something down and saying, well, that isn't a moving crowd, is it, Pete? So, you know, what is it about it? What colors can you see in there? And I'm sure, I think actually colors probably do reduce, don't they? We all know that as you go away. But I'm just looking at the majority of colors. It may need blue and blacks, maybe, I don't know. So I'm just chucking other little blobs and dots and just thinking, is that doing it? And then you probably get away with murder. You're probably just getting away with murder, doing very little, because as you start putting figures that look a bit more figurey as they come closer, you're painting it, Jeff, as you see it. You know, you're expecting a crowd because that's what I think.
Yeah.
Is that an answer?
So you're truly a retinal painter. You're like just looking and painting what you see, not overthinking it.
If I think, this is what I'm saying. When I went to art college, I thought for 3 years and then 2 years after that, and that got me in a right dead end. So I really don't think, Pete, just try. The only thinking I try and do is make myself. Are you being objective? Yeah. Are you really looking, or are you going through the motions, or are you thinking too much about what it's about? So really, a hand like this should be just as easy to draw as a mouse, shouldn't it? But
yeah, it's just a shape.
if we're just, I mean, obviously, yeah. So it's just shapes, isn't it? So it's kind of obviously we all struggle with that, but of course we do. But it's just trying to get through that. Just trying to get through it. It's just a shape. It's just a color. It's just a tone. But which is it?
Yeah, you know what I call that when I teach is the lizard brain.
Ooh,
I'm
cool.
like, you got to get in, because the problem amateurs have is they're thinking too much about what they're seeing. So you put your hand out there, right? And you said, this is hard. This shouldn't be hard to draw because it's just shapes. It's just, and there's no difference between that shape in complexity. But unless you turn on the lizard brain being the one that really isn't thinking, it's just seeing. But the problem is the thinking brain has too much understanding, and it says those are long fingers, right? That's a square palm, and those are long fingers, and so it wants to draw them long instead of just seeing, and you just have to turn off. It's almost like you have to make yourself stupid and just turn off that part of the brain and go to that lizard brain and just draw the shape, the flat shape. That's basically what you're saying, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You said it much better. Yeah, it's exactly it. Yeah, lizard brain. That's my new catchphrase. Yeah. Whatever. But,
what I want to do is look at the pictures you sent me. So tell me about what's going on. What's going on there? What's in? You having a show there?
Well, yeah. So the idea was the guy who's my dealer. They like to call themselves gallerists these days. Never understand it, but my dealer, gallerist, whatever bloke is in London, we're sorting one out in Manhattan, and it's sort of fallen through. So at the moment, it's sort of homeless. But I'm battling on and doing something, and hopefully we'll find somewhere. So I'm just painting away. Yeah, but it was supposed to be in April, and yeah, so it's been quite interesting. I mean, Johnny, my man in London, has asked me to do big paintings. So it's quite an interesting thing. So these are all quite large canvases, sort of like that's 30 by 25. And it's been quite an atmosphere.
Oh, here's the one with the dude.
Yeah, he's the guy with an unpainted, which I just thought I'd leave, you know.
Yeah, I like that.
So they're quite large. You said they go from 20 by 25 canvases up to about 30 by 35. And it's been really good.
30 by 35 on location.
On location, yeah. So
you must have crowds of people watching you paint.
We've had a bit of a sort of, we had a lovely time. It was quite a few.
And then you got that British accent, which everyone in the US is infatuated with. Oh, you're breaking up again.
Australian, Jeff.
What's that?
But yeah, sort of, they are, and they're not.
Yeah, they are. People love that accent.
I'm Australian for something. Yeah, it's the sort of, it's the kind of slightly Cockneyish Londonese thing, I think, or something. I don't know what it is, but yeah. So I'm, yes, it's wonderful. Actually, it's wonderful. I love it. I don't know if that's what I like best, whether it's the painting or just bumping into people in New York. It's just brilliant for our people. Just talk to you. It's just fantastic, you know, and I just find it. I love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah, just people just saying, you know, just saying whether they like it or don't like it, or whatever, and just speak.
Do people actually? Oh, that's New York for you. They'll actually tell you they don't like it in New York.
Yeah, completely. They'll put me straight and stuff. And
yeah, you know where you stand with a New Yorker.
Yeah, there was someone telling me that I should be using Payne's Grey the other day, and you know, and you just kind of take it, and that's fine. And it's so refreshing. I mean, I'm painting in Glasgow in Scotland, and you get that in Glasgow, but Scots will talk to you. And the thing is, I don't think people are necessarily nicer or meaner or anything, but it's just a yearning to communicate, it seems, and a lack of embarrassment at communicating. You know, just this is what I think, and you're going to hear it. You know, and it's nice. You know,
I like it. See, I'm originally from New York.
Okay.
And then I moved to Salt Lake City, which is Western United States.
Okay.
And I miss the New York. It's not the same throughout the U.S. You probably know that already, but the cultures are very different.
Actually, yeah, the West is different.
It is, and in this part of the country, you don't know where you stand with people. They don't tell you what they think. They just smile, and then they'll say all the crap to someone else that they don't like about you. But
that's what we do.
Yeah, but no, in New York, you know where you stand. It's great. If someone doesn't like you, they'll call you an a-hole, and then you can work it out. You know.
Absolutely. I was on the train going back the other day, going back to Brooklyn. So I'm staying in Brooklyn, and this woman just said, I was standing up, and I think this woman said, "Say your elbows too close to my head," and I was immediately completely affronted by it. I thought, my God, and I thought, well, my elbow was too close to her head, and she told me, and I moved my elbow, and it was fine. At the end, she said, "Love your painting," and walked off. Perfectly normal thing to say, absolutely fine. But as an Englishman, I would sit there livid with this elbow close to my head. I would get back to the apartment. I'd moan to all the people in the apartment.
That's the way Utahns are too.
You know, it's just nonsense. Why we don't? Yeah. Anyway, so I'm learning to. It's good for me. It's really good for me to be exposed to this, and I think it's really good, really refreshing. We should do more of it. Really,
it is. I love it. Yeah. That's great.
I've got to say, well, if I'm going to, I'd say get off the horn a bit more in New York. You don't need that much horn. It doesn't, the traffic's not moving. It doesn't make any difference. So I'd say less horn. But apart from that,
Oh, I know. It's constant, nonstop. Yeah.
There you go. Anyway,
well, one thing about the watching, a while back, I was sculpting an elephant at the zoo, and it was from life. And when you start, I'm sure you've seen sculpture start, right? You have to start with something. It's a lump of clay. And so I get all these people coming up to me in the beginning, and they'd say things like, Oh, that's really nice. Like, or like, are you taking a class or is this your first sculpture? This is really cool that you're trying this stuff like that. You know, there was trying to be
Yeah,
nice, but it was
yeah.
so, I was so condescending, you know? And then as the time went on and the sculpture got more and more like an elephant, and particularly at the very end when it looked like an elephant, the comments were completely different from obviously different people. Oh man, where do you sell your work? How much do you sell these for? Where can I look you up? Where can I find you? What's your name? Do you have a card? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
absolutely.
I imagine you probably go through that a little bit too. When you start a painting and you show up on a street with an empty canvas and a few lines and people are just like completely
Yeah,
unimpressed.
and
And
it
then
kind
it
of happens all the
evolves.
way. Yeah, it can happen all the way through. Actually, people will say, did you do all that yourself? Which is kind of a funny thing because I'm a complete stranger. So you think, well, why couldn't this stranger have done it himself?
That is a
And
weird question, isn't it?
kind of weird. I
Like, what
think,
is
and
it
it,
about you and your person that makes it so hard to believe?
yeah, that
I've
you've
had
just
the same
met.
question. I know.
Yeah, so weird, isn't it? I think we just all say stupid things and things from the sort of off the cuff. Um, and then yeah, I mean, what a lovely hobby, and it must be so relaxing and things like that. You just to bite your lip and stuff, and then I think everyone out there will have had this, and it's just you just remember that people are just trying to be nice, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
And if I went up to him, I was talking to a bloke who fixed my van this morning, and I was talking absolute rubbish. He's telling about the gaiters and the drive shafts, and so we have to be a bit patient, don't we? But it can be quite frustrating. Also, the assumption is as well that if you're painting on the street, you are. I mean, I get given a lot of money, Jeff. I get
People
given
just
dollars
give you money. You don't even put a hat or something out.
all the time. I mean, I have to say I don't take it. If they do force on me, it goes somewhere else. But but yeah, I mean, they in Chinatown, I'm left buns. I was trying to give me $5 the other day. It's remarkable. Well, I look like
So they
this.
think you're putting on a show. They don't realize.
I think it's a bit of both. It's a bit like it's you're a performer, and they appreciate it. They appreciate the fact that you're good or bad, what you do in the easel. You're looking in their backyard and saying, "I think this place is good enough to paint," and I think that's a compliment, And I think people appreciate that. So there's that, and also,
I mean, it's definitely flattering. I wouldn't take it as an insult, but it's just interesting the New York culture. I mean, that's what they're accustomed to. People street performing.
oh, I see. Oh, it's just I think it's one, and also I think also they probably think you could do a hot meal or something, So they,
Well,
but
you are covered in paint.
I look like hell, I do look like hell. So yeah, it's nice. It's nice. And then when I explain, oh, it's fine, it's my job, and I'm okay, and really, then they kind of, some people will apologise. No, no, no. It's nicer to be kind and offend. You're not going to offend me. I think it's good. So, um, yeah, that's
And
nice.
this is the
It's nice
case
to get.
anywhere you paint, not just New York City,
Yeah,
but
I
anywhere.
do get it. I mean, I get very often you get in the UK, you get students are always the most generous people, the people with the least amount of money, always kind of like because they got hearts of gold. It's generalised, but yeah, people do it, and I will find pound coins in the back of my easel. So I was like, how on earth did that get there? They just sort of chuck money
Oh my
in.
gosh, that's a trip.
I think it's because they assume that you're not. They assume you're not a professional artist. They assume because real artists. I don't know what we expect real artists to look like. I
Yeah,
don't know, but
people are just ignorant. I mean, which is understandable. Why would they know? I didn't know
yeah,
before I was an artist what an artist's life was like.
no. Well, yeah, and what do they look? How do we know what a real artist is? I think you're right about the performing thing. They think you're busking in a way. Perhaps that's it. I
Yeah,
don't know. But yeah,
that's a
I've
trip.
been asked a few times in New York to paint at people's weddings, which is strange. I don't want to do that.
What do you say? What do you
I don't
say?
know. I say no. Say
Just flat out
not,
no, or do you
not
say
me.
like,
You know what it's like. You learn to say no, don't you? You got it
yeah?
because you don't want to mess around. You don't. You know. So I say no. It's not what I do. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, that would be awkward.
Which would be really. I mean, to be fair, actually, Jeff, I have done it in the past. In the early days, I've done drawings at people's weddings, and it's an
No,
awful
there's
thing
nothing
to
wrong with it. I
do.
mean, you got to do what you got to do. But I mean,
Really
it's just
hard,
always
yeah.
awkward to be like, that's not really what I do. You don't want to come off like you're arrogant, like
No,
it's beneath
no,
you. You know what I mean?
exactly right, and that is a bit of an issue. So
Yeah.
we always to it. You know, I've got to make a living out of it, so I have to ask for money for the paintings, and so that is always a slightly tricky thing to broach sometimes. You know, on the street, because everyone thinks it's $50, you know, and so it can be tricky. And then you don't want to patronize people. So there's a sort of there's a slight balance to play, but you know.
Oh, and that's the hardest thing, you know, and I know this because I think I might even have asked you how much your paintings are at some point before you came on. I can't remember. Have I yet? Have I reached out to you for a painting yet?
You can ask me. I'll duck it mainly, and then eventually I'll say something. I don't know, but
Right.
yeah,
No,
I,
but
I
that's my point. It's like people come up to you on the street and they might say, "Hey, how much is that painting?" And then you say to them, "Oh, it's $10,000." And then it's all awkward because they're like, yeah, who do you think you are?" You know?
yes, there is that. But I mean, I had last sort of interface I had with someone was, and he was absolutely right. It was, and I explained it to Lisa. I said, "How the conversation going?" Because my point was he was a git, and she said, "Well, I completely understand him because he was saying to me, 'What are you doing with that painting?'" Now, what he meant was, "How much is that painting?" So the conversation went on for ages while he was saying, "What are you doing with that painting?" And I was saying, "Well, it's going to go in a show, and I don't know, and all this." And he got quite irate, and all he wanted
He
was a number.
did.
And so, and that's a perfectly reasonable question that wants, and you know, to hear this stupid Englishman whittering on about anything but what he wanted to hear, which was how many dollars is it, was very frustrating for him. And so I can see his point of view. You know, and he got just, "How much is it, mate? Tell me," and you know, we can move on. So
Yeah.
anyway, yeah,
Yeah, it is a tricky thing. I hate talking about money with paintings, whether I'm on the buying end or the selling end.
yeah,
It's such an awkward topic. I do it because you have to do it, but
yeah,
it's not my favorite thing.
yeah, quite, yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, let's before we go on, I got a couple more questions technically, and I know that my guests are probably going to have appreciate that as well, but not that that matters too much. I just want to know.
Okay.
But so tell me about your palette. Are you a lot of color guy? I mean, do you have a huge palette? Do you have a,
Annoying when not at the studio actually, because I could show you my palette, but so I have I lay out too many colors. I get, you know, my,
oh, you do.
yeah, I lay out everything. I mean, all the cadmiums, Viridian,
Oh, there's a
ten.
glimpse of it right there.
So, and but I don't use all of them. They're just crutches, just in case. And a lot of it is that things like crowds. Every now and then, you just want to hit a local color. You just want to stick something down. But if you look at these paintings, they're pretty much all raw umber, grey, and
Yeah, you could do it with four colors.
you could, yeah. And so basically, the colors I'm using most of the time is raw umber is probably my favorite color. Ultramarine blue, so I use them two together a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yellow ochre, and then I use burnt sienna, the sort of clayey one, and I like a sort of transparent one, like a transparent oxide, so a bit of a sort of more of a lakey, translucent, sort of like
Transparent red oxide, or
yeah, that's it, transparent
yeah,
red
that's one of
oxide.
my favorite colors.
It's so rich, and then I use a transparent yellow oxide as well.
Same.
Yeah, brilliant. So they're quite good. That's pretty much it. There's a color that I really do recommend now. I think it's probably a bit like transparent red oxide, but it's madder brown. And I've not really got into, because I've been using transparent brown oxide a bit, so I haven't quite worked out what does what out of those two actually, Jeff. So I'd need a bit more to get into the red oxide a bit more, and it might be the same as madder brown, which is made by Winsor and Newton, and I think someone else
Okay.
does. And it's a sort of purpley brown that will go cool really nicely, and it will go warm really nicely. You know, it's kind of sort of sits in the middle, and I'll use it as a sort of, I'm trying to do a purpley color with ultramarine blue. I'll mix it so it's not a bright purple, it's a sort of muddyish purple. Do you know what I mean? So you can get a
Mm-hmm.
sort of tarmac or macadam grey, you know, asphalt grey sort of thing. Or so that's a really nice colour that I really do kind of like and recommend people to use if they've not got it, because it's sort of takes you. It's quite interesting, I think. And then yeah, sort of, and then I do have all those awful colours I shouldn't be using, viridians and cadmiums, because I don't really know how to use them really. And then I try and use I call it an English red. I think it's a Venetian red, but one of those sort of brick reds, you know, that for my red as much as I can, and try to avoid using the cadmiums if I can, and use I have sometimes have alizarin
And you avoid
and
using the CADs for health reasons, or?
because no. So God, no. I don't use gloves. I'm desperately unhealthy, and because see, I'm only 25 years old. But I don't know. I don't use them because of that thing we were saying earlier on about word association. That you get the fire hydrant or something is red. I'm going for the red, but is it red? Can you see red really? How red is it? Surely isn't it more brown than red? It's just, so that's why I avoid it, because I naturally go there because I see red and I go for red. So I'm trying to stay as low as I can and introduce those colors if I really need them. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
I mean, I've been all over the shop in my day, and I used to use horrendous color, get really acidic. And that's always in my head to just try and keep it low, Pete,
So
And
you're looking for low chroma colors.
I'm looking to try and get it right. And when I look back at the paintings, I go, well, they are all a bit brown and grey, because you know what you do when you paint. You think, as you were saying earlier, you think you're doing I'm making new ground. And I think maybe it's another podcast or something, but you talk about I'm making new ground here, and then you look back at it and go, oh yeah, it's just another peat painting, it's the same old. But I kind of think I'm trying to get the colour, I think, as close as I can to sort of what's out there, in a way. I mean, I don't want to do a photograph, reproduce a photograph,
Right.
but I don't. See, in that one there, you've got sort of greens in the field at the back and the trees. There's a bit too much green in there. I think they're too green. I don't think they're too viridian-y, too much Prussian blue or whatever it is in there. I don't think they're very realistic greens. And so I want to sort those out a bit more. I find green extremely hard. I shouldn't do. As I say, talking about the hand, talking about hand like that and this. Well, green's just a colour. So, why don't you get it right? There's some mental thing going on up there that I'm struggling with. So,
I've heard that, I don't know if this is true, but I remember a long time ago hearing some sort of a study where they found that green is the least desirable color in terms
Really?
of like marketing and sales and stuff. Like if you want to sell something, avoid the color green. People just don't like it. I don't know if that's true, but I do know that it just seems like it's just a color that if you have an entirely green painting, it's just something about it. It's just hard to manage. It's just
Yeah, agree. It's very hard to get right. So very often I look at, is there a brown that we can push green? We can put a bit of blue in. Is there and there's a green I discovered recently by a company called Pip Seymour. I think they're called Seymour Wallace, I think, or Wallace Seymour they're called.
mm-hmm.
UK company, and it's called Bohemian Green. And it's quite it's like a very green, or perhaps it's like a green, or you don't get those green umbers. It's a bit like that. So it's quite a sludgy green. And so I'm trying to use that and trying to, if it needs a bit more, all right, stick a bit of yellow and a bit of blue and a bit of red in it or something, maybe.
So that's sort of the same philosophy as your beige white, your
Yeah.
unbleached titanium white. If you start with the gray green, then you're less likely to overdo it. Even though technically you could make a sap green or a phthalo green into that gray green.
Yes.
You're more comfortable starting with a gray green so that you don't overdo it.
I'm just trying to work out what's right to keep me down there. I mean, someone told me that apparently people used a black and I can't think about a black and a yellow just to get his greens, and it sort of kept them down a bit. There's all sorts of ways of doing it, aren't there? And you could just knock it off with a bit of, one of those reds or a brick red and stuff like that. But I'm just trying to. Green is my Achilles heel.
Yeah. I got to look into that study because it seems odd that we live on a relatively green planet, and yet green seems to be the color that no one really is drawn to. So there may not be any truth to that study. But anyway, all right. So we've only got a few minutes left, so I need to ask you the final question. Unfortunately, I could talk to you for hours. This has been awesome.
Me too. Right back at you, Jeff. But yeah, go on.
So the final question I always ask is if you could give one piece of advice that you either had or wish you had to an aspiring artist, what would that be?
it's the same as I've been saying all along, I'm afraid, and that is you can't
Hard
you don't let
work?
me you don't have well, yeah, hard work, but I'm sure we all say that, don't we? I think it's I want to say two. Okay, so sorry, but I'm going to do that. So, well, probably the most important thing I think is being objective. Is actually just constantly questioning yourself. But the danger with that is you end up beating yourself up. So you've got to ally that being objective with backing yourself. So
Hmm.
you've got to have faith in yourself, and 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 yet at the same time be constantly being objective and so yeah, that's two, isn't it? Following your own path sort of thing. I mean, the problem is, yeah, sorry, I'm wibbling, Jeff. Be
No, that's
objective,
good. That's
be
good.
objective, but back yourself. You can do it. And yeah, that's it. Shut up, Pete. Stop talking.
That was good advice. So I just had a conversation with I want to slaughter the name because I've got too many interviews now. Renato Machilo, I think is how you pronounce
Yes,
it.
yeah, that's what we're
Yeah.
saying.
And we were just talking about this idea of what it is that keeps people working, even when you hate your own work,
Right.
right? Because he was saying that sometimes he can just feel crippled by his insecurity with his work. And I think we all relate to that. And we couldn't come up with the right word because he said, despite feeling crippled by his insecurity and not believing in himself and the quality of his work, he still kept going back to the easel. And a lot of people commented on that video after that the word is grit. Like despite being hard on yourself, having grit, just still going back, constantly going back, even though you don't really necessarily, or you're never really satisfied with what you're doing. Just keep going back. I think that's the right word.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
And I think also you've got to be in a way a bit kinder to yourself and accept the fact that you're just learning and you're just trying to get a bit better.
Right.
And you will never do the perfect. The masterpiece you're talking about. I ain't doing a masterpiece. We'll never do the perfect painting. We'll just got to get close as we can to it, sort of thing. And you're just doing it for yourself. There's 30-year-olds out there that can just drop paint off a brush like you're like I'm Loganoff.
Like Logan Loganoff.
So
Yeah.
we have to let them do that, and we have to just plow our own path because just do your own thing, really. Yeah, it's funny. Grit is a good thing. Yeah, I go with that. Yeah,
Yeah.
fair play.
Man, thanks again. This was blast. Seriously.
Yeah, it's good. It's good
So
talking
great to know
you.
you.
I really enjoyed it. It's brilliant.
Do you ever
So,
come to the Western United States? You're not a landscape painter, so I imagine it's not your.
No. Never say no. I don't know, Jeff. It's a big wide world. I kind of, at the moment I'm getting grief because I'm about to go back to New York. So, rightly so. Traveling. Yeah, I watch this space.
Well,
Yeah,
if you ever come out here, you're welcome to stay with us. It'd be awesome to meet you. But
brilliant.
and
I'll bring 2 paintings.
yeah, bring those 2 paintings. Don't forget. But how far are you from Rosemary Brushes? Rosemary and Co.
So do you know what? I've never used these brushes, and
What?
I know everyone raves about them. I need to use them.
They're great brushes. They're great brushes.
Okay,
but
they're great.
but a great company. Like
Okay.
Simi and Rosemary are salt of the earth people. And you know what? It's the brushes are spectacular, but it's always nice to buy a product from people that you like. You know what I mean? Like great people. So, but the reason I was asking that though is because I'm going there next June. So I thought if you lived nearby, maybe I'd stop by and
Just
say
let
hi.
me know, Jeff. We'll hook up. Yeah, I'll
Okay.
introduce you to English beer if you like.
I'd love to meet you in person. Yeah.
That'd be great. Yeah, there was you got to go. But there's a friend of mine, this guy Pete St. John. We were sort of talking to each other, and I said, look, I owed him a beer because we just wanted a beer and hook up. And eventually, I said, yeah, I'm on my way to New York. He said, you're joking, and we literally crossed the Atlantic. He went to the UK for 2 weeks. I was in New York for 2 weeks, and we crossed back.
No
Just
way.
keep in touch, and let's just keep.
Oh, I'm gonna let you know when I'm in town.
That'd be ace.
For
That'd be really
sure.
good. Yeah,
I'd love to. I mean, you paint outside every day. I'd love to just stand by you and paint and just look over your shoulder every now and then, see what you're doing. But
You can do the green bits.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what did you call them? The fluffy bits, the trees.
Probably green bits.
Yeah, the fluffy or the whirly bits. I can't remember the adjective you used. It was funny.
There's those videos with Joseph, I can't remember his name, the watercolor painter. There's a couple, they're in Australia and they're doing a painting together. It's the funniest thing. I can't remember their names. Anyway, sorry, shut up.
And yeah. All right. Well, I'll stay in touch. I really appreciate that. Thanks again for doing the podcast.
Dude, Jeff, thanks for joining. Brilliant.
Thanks for tuning in to the Undraped Artist Podcast. If you enjoyed it, subscribe. And if you could, leave a comment or review. That really helps the channel. Please share the show with your friends, and if you're feeling generous, consider a monthly donation at theundrapedartist.com. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next week.